My in-laws caught us completely off guard when they moved in without any prior notice. At first, I thought they were merely delivering a large package, but to my astonishment, they emerged from the front door, stating they had no intention of paying rent or doing any chores. They insisted that we take care of them and demanded the biggest room, expecting us to assist with their move. It was surreal. My father-in-law, Austin, and brother-in-law, Owen, had simply barged in and started giving orders about rearranging things. The situation was so absurd that I couldn't help but chuckle, finding humor in the midst of the chaos. With a grin, I reassured them, "It's totally fine," and promptly called my husband, knowing he would be home soon. I couldn't help but wonder how he would react to this unexpected mess, especially considering that the ones who had mocked me were his own family. As anticipated, my husband arrived home, visibly upset with Austin and Owen. However, he surprised everyone by showing them a document. I couldn't contain my amusement as I watched his father and brother's expressions change, understanding that they had no grounds to stay here without our consent. In the end, the tables turned, and it was I who moved out of the house. My name is Catherine Miller, a 34-year-old remote worker. Due to certain family circumstances, I opted for a job that allowed me to work from home, giving me the flexibility to manage household chores and explore new recipes whenever I pleased. I met my husband, Michael Miller, through a dating app during the peak of a flu outbreak. Despite his frequent business trips, Michael wanted us to live together so I wouldn't feel lonely. We fell in love quickly, and marriage was on our minds. However, my irregular periods made it difficult for us to conceive, leading to emotional struggles. Opening up to Michael brought us closer, and we resolved to face life's challenges together. Our peaceful life was disrupted when Michael's father, Austin Miller, called us, complaining about not receiving greetings from our end. Although Michael had reservations about meeting his father, we decided to visit his parents' home. His reluctance was evident as we prepared to go, his frown deepening with every step. Throughout the journey, Michael's displeasure was palpable. He remained silent, clearly indicating his desire to avoid the impending encounter. I wished I knew the reasons behind his aversion, but he chose not to share. Despite my curiosity, I respected his silence, hoping he would eventually open up and confide in me. As we approached his parents' house, we carried a box of pastries as a gesture of goodwill. Michael's tension was undeniable, reflecting the complex relationship he had with his father. I had anticipated receiving sarcastic remarks, but I mustered the courage and left the house. Stress often gave me stomach aches, a fact not lost on Michael, who looked at me with concern and asked, "Are you okay? Should we do this another time?" "I think I'm fine," I replied, attempting to steady my nerves. "It wouldn't be right if we didn't greet your father, right?" It was the same father who had complained over the phone, and there was an air about him that suggested he wouldn't forgive us easily. The situation felt more troublesome than anything else. Michael, too, seemed to sense the tension and was eager to drive, perhaps to keep himself distracted. I couldn't shake the feeling that there were deep-seated issues at his childhood home. Meeting such a father-in-law could be tiresome, but I never regretted choosing Michael. I cherished the kindness he showed me and his occasional clumsiness. It was these little things that meant the most. Lost in thought, we eventually arrived at Michael's childhood home, which was conveniently close to our apartment. It was within walking distance, just a short stroll away if we ever felt like it. As I entered his house, his father greeted me with a big smile. Michael, on the other hand, gave his father a slight glare as he stepped inside. From a room deeper inside the house, I could hear Michael's raised voice. "You can't just mooch off Dad because you're unemployed and stay at home all day. How old do you even think you are?" "Shut up. What I do isn't any of your business." Owen, Michael's brother, defiantly held his own. To sum up the argument, Owen had been living an unemployed lifestyle since his late 20s, without any valid reason like health issues. It was simply because he felt jobs didn't suit him, while Michael understood the desire for a job that suited one's preferences. It was frustrating to see Owen not even attempting to find one. Their father was no different, constantly bringing home different women and ending relationships time after time. Michael always said there was no way they could be happy living like that. I'm not here to babysit the two of you. I came to announce that Catherine and I are getting married, Michael declared firmly. Yeah, got it. If you want to brag about being happy, do it somewhere else. I'm good if I can just live with Dad. Owen brushed off the confrontation, deeply engrossed in his video game. Annoyed by the sight, Michael was about to react when we realized his father was looming over us. Catherine, huh? If you're going to marry Michael, you better be ready to take care of his family. Once you're married to Michael, we're family. You get that? While that might be true, I didn't think it was mandatory. While that may be true, I don't think it's mandatory, I replied, trying to stand my ground. What did you just say, young lady? You've got some nerve. I'll teach you some respect for your elders. Suddenly, his father raised his voice, and I was snapped back to reality, taken aback. Michael quickly pulled my hand, and we managed to leave the house. Dread washed over me as his father, appearing more like a terrifying monster, began chasing us. There was something deeply unsettling about that family. The fear lingered, even as we attempted to choose an apartment. His father always seemed to beat us to it, deciding for us. To prevent such incidents from recurring, Michael and I decided we needed to move. Thanks to my job in web-related work, I had the flexibility to work from anywhere with just a computer. My job wasn't the issue, but Michael's was. While he enjoyed household chores, he also owned a carpentry business, often traveling for work. Consequently, I ended up handling most of the moving process. There was an inevitability to our situation, but I couldn't shake the feeling that his father and the jobless Owen might visit. Given my knack for bad premonitions turning true, all I could do was hope they wouldn't come. In the meantime, I proceeded with the moving arrangements, taking Michael's opinions into account. I wanted to get everything sorted before they potentially showed up at our house. Once the moving process was done, I was finally able to shift to working from home. There were still a few loose ends, including contacting a representative regarding a web video project I had discussed earlier. While I was engrossed in messaging and talking on the phone, I heard a knock on the front door. Michael usually didn't bother knocking. He would simply walk in. The unexpected visitor puzzled me. Could it be his father and Owen? The thought sent a shiver down my spine. As I contemplated this, a loud, aggressive voice echoed from behind the door. It was his father, Austin. Panic set in. Michael wasn't back yet, which meant I had to handle this situation alone. Perhaps talking to him would resolve things. I ended my call with the client and cautiously approached the front door. The relentless knocking only confirmed my suspicions. It had to be his father. Uncertain of his intentions, but determined to protect our peace, I mustered a polite greeting and opened the door slightly. Before I could react, Owen forcefully pushed the door open, dropping a large bag at the entrance with a satisfied grin. He theatrically collapsed onto a chair, exclaiming, "I'm exhausted." I asked Austin what was going on, and he explained, "We couldn't pay the mortgage on our place, so we sold it and decided to move. Naturally, we won't pay any rent or do any chores, so take care of us." With a self-centered air, both his father and Owen strolled into our apartment. Owen, lugging his baggage, scanned the rooms to decide where he would settle. Meanwhile, his father, after depositing his enormous bag in the living room, began to complain about the room's size. "Come on, this apartment is meant for 2 people, you know. If we're going to have 4 people living here, we might need to find another place." However, Michael and I had already chosen our next home, and our moving date was just around the corner. "I'm going to take the upstairs room," Owen declared, showing no consideration for the situation. "Catherine, can you tidy up this room for me? And haven't you put too much stuff in the living room? There's no space for us to even eat together." I was left utterly speechless by their audacity, as they said whatever pleased them without any regard for courtesy. Deciding that I needed to inform Michael about the situation, I was suddenly startled by the sound of someone punching a wall, most likely out of anger. However, the words that followed provided a small relief, indicating that I might not have to deal with these two any longer. Unfortunately, due to work circumstances, Michael couldn't return to the apartment. The burden of handling the situation fell upon me, and as a woman, facing two men alone felt unsafe. So, I decided to make a call for help. The person I called was a friend who had previously assisted both Michael and me with our moving preparations. She happened to live in a building constructed by Michael's company, and her name was Olivia Lewis. Olivia was a CEO who owned properties overseas. When I explained the situation to Olivia, she expressed her unease about the father and son in my home. Soon enough, they arrived at our apartment, arrogantly scattering their belongings everywhere. Despite the fact that Michael and I were the rightful owners of the apartment, with me being the leaseholder due to my remote work, they seemed oblivious to the reality. With a gracious smile, I told the two clueless men, "That's totally fine. We're moving out of this apartment anyway." His father, appearing desperate, clung to me. I couldn't hide my condescending look as I firmly stated, "Don't cling to me looking so pitiful. It's embarrassing." He was on the verge of tears, trying to reason. "It's a joke, right? Tell me it's a joke." I responded sternly, "It's not a joke, Austin. Michael and I decided this together. There's no way I'd joke about it now." The same man who had been smug about the living room just a while ago was now clinging to me, looking truly pitiable. Owen, puzzled by the scene between his father and me, came downstairs and couldn't believe what he was witnessing. "Dad, are you seriously trying to make a move on Michael's wife? Now that's just unbelievable," Owen remarked. I had a few choice words for Owen, who was making such comments. To begin with, as soon as he arrived at our place, I was infuriated by his audacity in searching for his own room in a house he hadn't even rented. Their actions were beyond my comprehension. If anyone should be saying unbelievable, it's my line. You folks moving into someone else's house is just unbelievable. You didn't even have a lease. What made you think you could just move in and live here? Realizing that I needed assistance in dealing with this situation, I decided to call Olivia, who held considerable authority as both the landlord of an apartment complex and its general manager. Olivia was a respected figure in the area, often referred to as the CEO due to her prominence. There was no way they could talk their way out of this once she arrived. Olivia soon arrived at the parking lot and entered the room. Olivia assessed the situation alongside me and the two men and seemed to grasp the core issue. She decided to contact Michael to address the matter. After a brief conversation with Michael, Olivia appeared to have resolved the issue. Her expression was dead serious as she inquired, "Did you handle the tax declaration after selling your house?" "No, not yet," I admitted. "That's odd. We can't lease you the apartment without that. Please ensure you've reported it correctly, and then we may proceed with this room," Olivia explained, demonstrating a meticulous approach. When dealing with individuals like the ones we were facing, legal knowledge was essential to have a fair conversation. Michael must have been well aware of his father's troublesome nature. His father had a reputation for being self-centered and engaging in extramarital affairs, a story Michael had shared with me before one of his business trips. Michael's mother had left their house after discovering his father's infidelity, and her departure left Michael feeling remorseful. She had even hugged Michael apologetically before leaving, expressing guilt for leaving him in such a household. Michael had then taken over all the household chores. However, his father's philandering behavior only worsened over time, while Owen kept jumping from one job to another before ultimately becoming unemployed around the age of 28. He took pride in receiving unemployment benefits and eventually withdrew from social interaction, feeling overwhelmed. Faced with the daunting task of taking care of Owen and their father, Michael decided to marry me. They were diligent in paying utility bills, but occasionally skipped out on insurance premiums and other minor fees. Michael even worried about being unable to complete the house loan payments. Realizing that they weren't responsible adults, Michael eventually decided it was time to move out. When his father began arguing with Olivia, Michael sent me a message instructing me to intervene. I stepped in between his father and Olivia and calmly stated, "Excuse me, but Michael and I are moving out tomorrow due to some reasons." His father seemed taken aback and asked, "Hey, hold on. What's going on? I didn't hear about this from Michael. Shouldn't he inform his father when he's moving?" I replied, "He said he didn't want to talk to you about it. He thinks it's best to live separately from a philandering, selfish person like you and Owen." To emphasize my point, I showed his father our conversation on WhatsApp, where Michael had voiced his dissatisfaction with his father. Although I had only been a listener, I had gathered a very negative impression of their past actions. Even during our brief interactions, I couldn't help but find it peculiar for his father and Owen to move into our apartment. Based solely on that fact, I had doubts about the reliability of this father and son duo. Olivia interjected during his father's grumbling, explaining, "Even if Catherine leaves, if you, Austin, don't declare the sale of your previous house, you won't be able to rent an apartment in the future." Austin, appearing somewhat baffled, responded, "But I have money on hand. Isn't that enough?" Olivia clarified, "No, it's not just about selling the house and being done, Austin. If you don't declare it, there are penalties. You'll be the one at a loss. Are you okay with that?" Austin reluctantly agreed, acknowledging the point. Olivia's reasoning made sense in the context of real estate transactions. If he had sold the previous house, he would eventually need to report it to the local authorities. Perhaps he hadn't even reported it to the real estate agency, which would be suspicious. Given their lack of research and understanding, it was evident that Austin and Owen had moved into our place without considering the necessary procedures. As I examined the documents Olivia had brought, it was apparent that they didn't comprehend any of it. I had been fielding questions from Austin and Owen about the documents and couldn't help but wonder how long it would take for them to grasp the situation. Michael and I had resided in this apartment for quite some time, and we had taken the initiative to research the necessary procedures. That's why everything went so smoothly for us. There were always pros and cons to everything, and it seemed like common sense to check things out before making such a significant move. Yet they had moved into our place without giving it any thought, which I found highly questionable. The ones acting recklessly were Austin and Owen. In that moment, Olivia decided to issue a warning to the two of them. "Please don't assume you can just move into this apartment immediately. I'll check everything thoroughly and get back to you. Then we can decide on the next steps," Olivia said firmly. Owen seemed to understand, sitting quietly and listening. To be on the safe side, I chose to spend the night at my parents' house as the apartment was going to be rented out the next day. I didn't want to sleep with two guys, especially ones who lacked common sense. Considering the risk of getting involved in some mess, I decided to let Michael's father and his brother stay in my apartment. Olivia, whom I got along with at the real estate agency, had suggested it too, indicating there might have been genuine issues. If anything went wrong, it could ruin our moving plans with Michael. I entrusted the situation to Olivia, the real estate agent, and informed Michael to proceed with the preparations for our new place. I stayed in touch with Olivia to check on how the two were doing. Based on her recommendation, the apartment was rented to Michael's father and Owen for just a few days. Olivia needed to verify if they had properly completed the necessary procedures at the real estate agency, and if they had been paying their taxes regarding the house they claimed to have sold. She also had to contact the associated real estate firm. It turned out that not only had they neglected post-sale procedures, but they also hadn't paid their taxes. Moreover, Olivia reported them to the police, suspecting they might have run off with just the sale money, hinting at a potential scam. To be safe, Olivia decided to inform Michael's father and Owen, who were staying in the apartment. If false information was provided to the real estate company, penalties would surely be enforced. They would not only have to pay the taxes, but also face potential penalties. I wondered how much money would be left in the end. According to what I heard from Olivia, it seemed that it might even go into the negative. The reason was that they had only consulted one real estate agency, which had good reviews and word-of-mouth recommendations. They believed the estimate would be the same no matter which agency they asked. Another task they had neglected was the property transfer process. In simple terms, it involved changing the property's name from Michael's father to the new owner. If there was any outstanding mortgage on the house, it should have been paid from the sale. But as expected, they hadn't paid it, turning the situation into a case with interrogations regarding the amount due and possible fraud. What was particularly bad was Michael's father insisting he knew nothing about it. As for Owen, he couldn't return to his old home, and he lost our apartment. He was forced to find a job with housing provided. However, he only had experience being a shut-in and living off his parents. Eventually, my parents took him in, but they made it clear that once he found a job with housing, he had to move out. With some guidance from my parents, it seemed he might secure a job. I hoped Michael's father and Owen would learn to live responsibly. Meanwhile, Michael and I decided to relocate overseas. Michael's hard work had been recognized, and he was offered a project abroad in Spain. However, both of us were Americans who couldn't speak Spanish. We diligently studied, trying to learn basic conversation skills. I wanted to be able to hold everyday conversations as much as possible. More than anything, it was my first time going on a business trip abroad, so there was a part of me that was really excited. Michael's job was overseas, so he started looking at potential homes for us. He kept me updated through messages and calls, always trying to ensure I wasn't anxious. Today, from the airport, I received a call from a worried Michael who was about to fly to Spain. "Are you okay? I know it's been hard because of my dad and brother. I'm totally fine. I'm more excited about living abroad with you," I reassured him. "Good to hear," Michael said, his voice filled with relief. His relief made me happy too. We were now free from those two, and we were going to enjoy our lives. To achieve that, we would keep studying, learn new things, and adapt to our new life. Everything was going to be all right. And so, our life in Spain began. A child came into our lives, and our daily routine changed as a family of 3. We cherished our happiness and continued to live strongly every day.
Don't come back here because my girlfriend and I are going to live in this house. On the day my 3-year-old daughter was finally allowed to come home from the hospital after being there for a month, I returned to find my husband living with another woman. I was shocked by his betrayal. Both he and his girlfriend laughed at me, mocking me. To make things worse, my husband had the nerve to call me back to clean up the house, essentially kicking me out. Furious, I talked to some people and made sure my husband and his girlfriend faced consequences for their actions. My name is Emily. I met my husband Michael through my sister's husband, and we lived together with our 3-year-old daughter. We built our house while I was pregnant. We chose everything together, keeping it white inside and out, which I really liked. However, white gets dirty easily, so it needs a lot of cleaning. My husband gets very upset if there is even a small stain. He gets angry when our daughter spills food or dirties the walls. But he never helps clean up. He just complains that the house is dirty. He always points out the tiniest details, and lately I've been getting really fed up with it. Initially, I quit my job and became a full-time housewife after we got married. But when our daughter started kindergarten, I decided to work part-time to save money for the future. Since I started working, I hoped my husband would help more with housework and childcare. However, he thinks that my part-time job is my own choice, so he continues to leave all the household and childcare duties to me, just like before. One day, after sending our daughter to kindergarten, my sister and her husband, who live nearby, were supposed to visit our house. I tried to tidy up as much as possible while helping my daughter get ready in the morning. My husband got annoyed that our daughter was touching things with her messy hands and called me before he left for work, complaining that I wasn't disciplining her properly. Even though he used to adore her when she was born, lately he looks at her as if she is something dirty. I try not to show my feelings in front of our daughter, but his attitude has been really upsetting me. Because my husband complained, I was running late to take my daughter to kindergarten and rushed to get back home to meet my sister and her husband. They had decided to visit just 2 days earlier when they called to see if I had time to meet. I thought they must have something important to talk about, but when I saw them at the front door, I realized it might not be good news. I invited my sister and her husband into the living room, and although they complimented our always clean house, Their expressions remained serious. After I served them coffee, my sister's husband finally gathered the courage to speak. Actually, I've heard some not so good rumors about Michael. What he said next was unbelievable. Apparently, my husband was having an affair with a coworker. My husband was originally introduced to me by my sister's husband, but they weren't directly acquainted. It was through a mutual friend of theirs, my husband's brother. In other words, my brother-in-law's friend works at the same company as my husband, and he had heard some bad rumors from a colleague. One of the colleagues said that a female coworker had been going around saying she has a boyfriend in the company, and it seemed like she was talking about my husband. Just as my brother-in-law's friend was trying to discreetly find out if the rumors were true, he accidentally stumbled upon my husband and the woman together. They weren't even trying to hide it, openly flirting at the company. His friend was shocked, took a photo of them, and reported it to my brother-in-law. Then my brother-in-law told my sister's husband and showed him the photo. Even though my sister's husband initially couldn't believe it, he had to accept the truth when he saw the photo evidence. He had the photos with him, but I chose not to look at them. My sister and her husband apologized, feeling sorry for introducing me to a man who would cheat. Finding out about my husband's affair left me unsure of what to do. I had never doubted him before my sister's husband shared his story. Most of all, I didn't want to take my daughter's father away from her. But I also couldn't bear the idea of being betrayed. Just as I was about to discuss next steps with my sister and her husband, my phone rang. It was the kindergarten, informing me that my daughter had a high fever and needed to be picked up. It looks like my daughter is sick with a fever, so I needed to go pick her up. When I mentioned this, my sister and her husband, who had come by car, offered to come with me to get my daughter. The three of us went together to pick her up from kindergarten. When we got to the kindergarten, my daughter looked exhausted, and it was clear her illness was more serious than a common cold. Her cheeks appeared swollen, and her teacher mentioned that a classmate had MPS, raising concerns that my daughter might have it too. We hurried to the hospital and informed the reception about our suspicions regarding MPS, given her symptoms. They decided she needed immediate tests because there was a risk of complications. While waiting for the test results, I became anxious and tried calling my husband, but he didn't answer and didn't call me back. Soon after, we learned from the test results that my daughter had MPS and had developed meningitis. She was admitted to the hospital immediately and settled into a room. After getting an explanation about her hospitalization and seeing that she was asleep, I decided to go home to prepare for her stay. My sister and her husband offered to stay with her, so I called a taxi and headed home. Late at night, my husband finally returned my call. He sounded annoyed that I had called him while he was at work and said sharply, "Don't call me during work." I explained our daughter's condition, her fever, hospitalization, and meningitis diagnosis, but he didn't seem to grasp how serious it was. He responded dismissively, "You're with her at the hospital, so don't bother me with every little thing. I'll stay there for a while to be with her." "All right, I'll leave it to you," he said, and then abruptly hung up without expressing any concern for our daughter. As a result, my daughter stayed in the hospital for over a month. During that time, my sister, her husband, my parents, and even my in-laws visited us frequently, worried about her. Surprisingly, my husband never visited once. When it was time for my daughter to be discharged, I asked my husband to pick us up, but he refused, claiming he was too busy with work. I shared this with my sister, and she and her husband offered to drive us home instead. On the day of my daughter's discharge, my sister's husband drove us home. It was a relief to see my daughter back to her normal self after such a long ordeal. However, when we arrived home, I noticed my husband's car in the parking lot, even though he was supposed to be at work. Through the window, I could see the silhouette of a woman inside. My sister and her husband also saw it and were furious, convinced it was his affair partner. I stopped them from barging in, left my sleeping daughter with them in the car, and went inside alone. When I entered the living room, I saw a woman standing close to my husband, just as I had seen from outside the window. When my husband noticed me, he quickly moved away from her. But it was already too late. I had seen everything. "Hey, I'm back. Who's this?" I asked him. Instead of answering, my husband stepped in front of the woman as if to shield her from me. Ignoring my question, he demanded, "Why are you here?" I couldn't believe it. He had forgotten the day our daughter was supposed to come home from the hospital. I told you today was the day she's getting out of the hospital, I insisted. No way. You said it was tomorrow. You tricked me into coming back today. My husband's response made it clear he had been so focused on bringing his mistress home that he forgot about our daughter. The woman peeked around my husband, looked at me, and smirked. Then she remarked to him, "Is this your wife?" What a chubby old lady. Hearing that, my husband's attitude hardened as he declared, "Yeah, I've got a young and cute girlfriend now. We decided to live here together, so don't come back." He put his arm around his mistress, as if to emphasize their relationship. I recalled the moment my sister's husband had revealed the affair to me. Despite my initial hesitation about divorce, witnessing my husband's behavior during our daughter's hospitalization shattered any remaining love I have for him. He hadn't visited our daughter even once in the hospital, leaving me to handle everything alone while he took advantage of my absence to spend time with his mistress in our home. I had taken time off from my part-time job and was exhausted from running between the hospital and home. Instead of supporting me during this difficult time, he was flaunting his new relationship and demanding I stay away from our own house. I was forced to clean up after my husband and his mistress, who had the audacity to tell me not to come back home. Exhausted and unable to argue any longer, I quickly packed my things and returned to the car where my sister and her husband were waiting. As I left, my husband and his mistress laughed at me. In the car, I shared what had happened with my sister and her husband. They were ready to confront my husband, but I stopped them. I didn't want my daughter to witness a scene like that, so I asked them to take us to my parents' house instead. We found a warm welcome there, and my daughter gradually improved while staying with my parents. From the time our daughter started crawling, my husband seemed only concerned about cleanliness and rarely interacted with her. His affection for her was fleeting, and she likely doesn't have many memories of him being loving or attentive. She never expressed a desire to see her father or mentioned feeling lonely. I didn't have the energy to confront my husband when I left our house, but I couldn't let things continue like this. Now that my daughter was recovering and could possibly return to kindergarten, I started to consider what to do about my husband. One day, I got a call from him. Curious about what he wanted to say, I answered. He bluntly told me, "The house is dirty. Come back and clean it." Even though he should have been living there with his affair partner, it seemed like neither of them did any housework. My sister had mentioned she was young and likely hadn't lived on her own before, leaving household chores to her family. It was absurd for my husband, who had told me not to return, to now demand that I come back just to clean. His request struck me as incredibly selfish. I declined his request in disbelief. "You should clean your own house, or maybe that girl you're having an affair with can do it," I retorted, hanging up the phone. Despite my husband's persistent calls afterward, I ignored them all. I could only imagine his frustration on the other end, unsure of what would happen next. Later that night, after putting my daughter to bed with the help of my parents, I was folding laundry in the living room when I heard a commotion at the front door. Curious, I went to investigate. As I opened the door, I was shocked to see my husband and his affair partner standing there, completely soaked in red. Behind them, my sister and her husband, along with my in-laws, stood with stern expressions, ensuring they couldn't escape. My husband and his affair partner apologized, saying, "We are truly sorry." However, my sister, her husband, and my in-laws didn't accept their apology. What covered them from head to toe was not blood but tomato juice. After my husband had called me to clean the house, I immediately informed my sister, her husband, and my in-laws about it. My sister and her husband visited my husband first, while my in-laws, who lived nearby, drove over to his place. My sister and her husband tricked my husband into going to the garden, pretending they needed some gardening tools I owned. When he turned his back, they pelted him with tomatoes. Startled, he turned around, only to have more tomatoes thrown at his face. These tomatoes were overripe and very soft, sourced as waste from a farm owned by a relative of my sister's husband. They wouldn't have caused much physical pain upon impact, but their squishy insides splattered easily, which clearly affected my husband, who prized cleanliness. My sister and her husband didn't give him a chance to react and continued throwing tomatoes. The tomatoes not only hit my husband but also splattered against the pristine white walls of the house, causing chaos. As this unfolded, my in-laws arrived on the scene. My husband was now being bombarded with tomatoes by my sister, her husband, and my in-laws. Amidst his panic screams and flailing, his affair partner, curious about the commotion, appeared in the garden. Without hesitation, she too became a target for the tomatoes. Attempting to flee back inside, she was forcefully pulled back out by my sister and ended up running alongside my husband in the garden. I overheard everything while on the phone from the moment my sister and her husband showed up at my husband's place. Every time the walls outside got dirty, my husband would scream sadly, and his affair partner would join in crying and panicking. Eventually, my sister, her husband, and my in-laws threw all the tomatoes they had brought. By then, the two of them had calmed down completely. They were then walked to my parents' house nearby. Even though I can never forgive what my husband and his lover did, hearing my husband's pitiful voice and the lover's cries made me feel a bit better. It was almost funny to see them both so desperate, apologizing to me. My sister's husband came up with this plan. After my daughter left the hospital, I began to doubt my husband's behavior during her stay. I decided to set up the baby monitor we used when she was little in our bedroom. I suspected that if my sister's husband was right, my husband might have been bringing his lover to our house while our daughter and I were away. I was anxious that the hidden baby monitor, concealed near a houseplant, would be discovered at any moment. Fortunately, neither my husband nor his lover found it, and it captured everything they did. Since the day my daughter was in the hospital, it seemed like my husband was living with his lover at our house part-time. Each time I returned home, I saved the recorded footage as proof. After my daughter left the hospital and I confirmed my husband's affair, I confided in my sister and her husband about the video evidence and sought their advice on what to do next. They suggested involving my in-laws first. My in-laws live about a 30-minute drive away and are usually calm people, unlike my husband who often gets angry. So with my sister and her husband, I took the evidence to my in-laws' house. At first, they found it hard to believe that their son could cheat. However, when we showed them the footage, they saw undeniable proof of my husband being intimate with his lover. They had no choice but to believe me. What's worse, my husband was heard saying hurtful things about our daughter, like how she just makes a mess and isn't cute at all, and that he wanted to throw both her and me out. This revelation made my in-laws furious. They wanted to confront my husband immediately. But my sister, her husband, and I convinced them to hold off for the moment. When my husband found out I knew about the affair, he became defiant. We didn't want to give in to his wishes for a quick divorce, so we discussed with my in-laws how to come up with a fitting punishment. Seeing the evidence on the video, my in-laws were also deeply hurt and immediately agreed to our plan. After brainstorming together, we decided on a unique punishment, throwing tomatoes at him. This idea came from my sister's husband, who had studied in Spain and was inspired by the tomato festival there. We thought it would be satisfying because my husband really dislikes getting dirty, and throwing tomatoes wouldn't cause any harm. It was also convenient timing since my sister's husband's relatives, who are farmers, had an excess of tomatoes that were going to be discarded. Initially, I was taken aback by the unusual idea, but I soon realized that simply throwing tomatoes wouldn't suffice. I felt my husband deserved to experience some discomfort from being hit by tomatoes, so I agreed to the plan. My sister, her husband, and my in-laws were all set to carry it out. I wanted to join in throwing tomatoes at my husband as well, but I was still concerned about my daughter's well-being and couldn't leave my parents' house. Additionally, my sister and her husband felt guilty for introducing me to my husband, and my in-laws felt responsible for how they raised their son. So it was decided that the four of them would proceed with the plan without me. I made sure they promised to do it outside the house, not inside. Despite my disappointment at not being able to throw tomatoes myself, witnessing my husband and his lover in such a pitiful state, thanks to my family, was oddly satisfying. I had already informed my parents about my husband's affair, so when they were brought to my parents' house, they were visibly uneasy. I threw the divorce papers at my husband without looking him in the eye and said firmly, "Let's get divorced. I have all the evidence of your affair. You'll also need to pay child support." Upon hearing the mention of child support, the lover reacted with disbelief. It seemed she had been imagining marrying my husband, becoming a housewife, and living comfortably. Realizing that child support payments could burden her financially, she began denying any involvement, claiming, "I have nothing to do with this man." That's when I mentioned the footage from the baby monitor. At this point, the lover argued that it was an invasion of privacy, and my husband backed her up, threatening legal action against me. However, my in-laws, along with my sister and her husband, scolded them harshly. Still shaken from the tomato incident, both of them fell silent quickly. When I reiterated to my husband that he needed to agree to the divorce, he reluctantly began to complain. "I've been supporting you all this time, and as a housewife, you should obey your husband. You can't even clean properly. You were a useless wife. It's only natural that I cheated on you," my husband sarcastically remarked, mocking the idea of a part-time working mother being able to support herself. However, there was a reason why I decided to return to my parents' house this time. It wasn't just because my parents and my sister and her husband welcomed me back, but also because I was offered a full-time position at my part-time job. When I informed my husband about this opportunity, he clicked his tongue in frustration. That's when I made it clear to him that my daughter and I would never return to that house again. Predictably, my husband started complaining about who would clean the walls of the house. But ultimately, it was his infidelity that caused all of this, and he was entirely at fault. When he demanded that I pay for cleaning the exterior, my in-laws had had enough. They disowned him right then and there for bringing up such trivial matters at this point. After being disowned by my in-laws, my husband unexpectedly proposed to his mistress. Covered in tomato and feeling humiliated, she had lost all affection for him, and the idea of paying child support added to her rejection. She bluntly told my husband, "I'm not interested in a man without money," leaving him stunned. Under our stern gazes, my husband reluctantly agreed to our divorce. We informed them that we would continue discussions through our lawyers, and then we sent my husband and his mistress away. I'm not sure what they discussed on their way back, but apparently, they ended up angrily arguing and parted ways, cursing each other out. Afterwards, my husband ended up living alone in our house, struggling to manage the mortgage and child support payments on his own. He tried seeking help from his brother, but was coldly turned away and cut off from his family. Now he had no one left to rely on. Meanwhile, the mistress faced repercussions from the rumors about her relationship with my husband. She ended up quitting her job, and when her affair was discovered by her parents, they disowned her just like my husband's family did to him. She was kicked out of her parents' home and now lives in a cheap, run-down apartment. During the day, she works part-time, and at night, she works in a nightclub to make ends meet. My sister once spotted the mistress working at a store's register and remarked how much weight she had lost and how aged she looked, despite being in her early 20s. It's heartbreaking to think about how a single mistake could dramatically alter someone's life and rob them of so many potential happy moments. As for me, I've started working full-time with the support of my parents, sister, and her husband, who welcomed me back to their home. It's challenging at times, but I'm beginning to feel a sense of achievement as I take on more responsibilities at work. My daughter has settled into living with my parents and is thriving each day. When we lived with my husband, she struggled to get along with adult men, likely due to his yelling. Now, she's gradually overcoming that thanks to the kindness shown by my sister's husband and my father. Surrounded by a caring family, my daughter and I are now enjoying a peaceful and happy life.
A funeral dress with a skirt that's too revealing makes me angry. It seems like you're trying to attract men by wearing it. I'm tired of my husband's unfair thoughts. I want a divorce. I'm leaving this house. My name is Kate, and I'm 40 years old. I love chocolate a lot and often end up eating a whole family-sized bar by myself without realizing it. I used to fight with my sister over chocolate when we were younger. Looking back, I wasn't always a mature big sister, but I've seen adults who act even less mature than I did when I was 25. Back then, I had just married my husband, Kevin, who worked at a bank. We met through a friend and got married after about 6 months of dating. Everyone thought I had a perfect life. But things changed after we got married. Every day, when Kevin came home from work, I would greet him and ask about dinner. If it wasn't ready, he'd get upset. So, I made sure to come home before him, cook dinner, and clean up. It was a bit annoying, but Kevin's good salary allowed us to live in a nice house and have a comfortable life. I thought it was normal to have little arguments in a marriage, so I didn't pay much attention to it. But Kevin's behavior kept getting worse. Despite being married, I still visited my parents often, especially to see my 14-year-old sister who was much younger than me. Since our parents worked a lot, I felt like I raised her most of the time. It wasn't because my parents ignored her, but because I loved her so much and wanted to take care of her. My sister was often sick and had to stay in the hospital. Sometimes the doctors would say she might not make it through the night. Thinking about losing her made me love her even more. That's why even after I got married, I continued to visit my sister when she was out of school. But my husband didn't like it. He would say things like, "Who is more important, me or your sister?" When a woman gets married, she should focus on her husband's family. My mother never acted like this. "You're not doing your duty as a wife." He'd go on like this for almost an hour. None of my friends were married at the time, so when I talked to a senior coworker about my husband, she said, "It's your responsibility. When you're married, you have to prioritize your husband." I thought that's how it was supposed to be. Looking back, I realized I was naive. But even then, I couldn't imagine not seeing my sister. My sister's health was getting worse, and she was in the hospital again, only allowed short visits in a sterile room. It's natural for a family to want to be together in times like these. Sometimes, I'd even take a day off from work to go see her, and I started going to the hospital even on days when my husband was off. But my husband strongly disagreed with this. One day, out of the blue, he invited his mother, my mother-in-law, over to our house. With her there, he confronted me. "What are you even thinking? I work hard to take care of our home, and you can't even do that properly. You're just hopeless. I've told you so many times not to wear skirts, yet you still do. It's inappropriate for a married woman to wear a skirt. What's the problem with me wearing the clothes I like? And this dress was chosen by my sister. I can't just give up on it." "See, there you go again, always bringing up your sister Kate. You should be caring more about me. After all, who do you think supports you? Hey, I work too. You can't just claim you're the only one providing." This argument isn't getting us anywhere. "Listen, I've already called your workplace and told them you're quitting. You should be thankful. From now on, your focus will be on taking care of the house." "What are you talking about? You can't make decisions like this without asking me first. I'm not going to listen to you. Starting today, you're going to live with my mom. Maybe then you'll learn how to be a proper wife." "I don't understand what's gotten into you. You're acting irrationally." "Shut up." The angry husband smashed a glass on the floor and continued to throw things around in his rage. Seeing the broken glass made me truly scared of my husband for the first time. I regretted marrying him, wondering how I ended up with someone like him. Later, I tried to cancel my resignation with my company, but they told me not to cause any trouble. It turned out my husband had demanded my resignation in a way that was almost abusive, so I lost my job and had to stay at home as my husband wanted. When I told him I quit my job as he wished, he apologized with a smile, saying he might have gone too far. But after seeing his true nature, I couldn't trust his apology. The next day, my husband surprised me by bringing home a group of his coworkers. He proudly introduced me, saying, "I wanted to show off my lovely wife." And his colleagues joined in, praising my appearance. Then, out of the blue, he declared, "My wife is an amazing cook. You have to taste her food before you leave." I panicked, realizing we didn't have enough food for everyone. "It's fine, just make something simple." "I don't want you to stress out," he reassured me. "I can go shopping if we need more ingredients," one of his female coworkers offered. "Your husband really cares about you. I'm jealous," he added. "No, he's just good at putting on a show. If he really cared, he wouldn't have brought his coworkers home after a big fight yesterday." I thought bitterly to myself as I started cooking with my mother-in-law. After about 3 hours of eating and drinking, his coworkers finally left. "Hi, you." "What?" I instinctively replied, feeling nervous about what might happen next, given his grumpy mood. I was anxious, afraid he might explode like the day before. "Can't you be a bit happier? Seems like I'm not teaching my wife properly," he criticized. I couldn't understand what I did wrong, but I didn't dare to argue. I was too scared. "I'm sorry," I mumbled, feeling defeated. "Even a child can apologize," he scoffed. "Mom, give her a score for today." He turned to his mother for backup. "Well, she's not doing a good job supporting her husband, is she?" "I can't give her any score," his mother replied. "Haha, see, even my mom agrees. She can't even give you a score. How funny is that?" My husband laughed and lightly tapped me. "And about the meal, I tasted a bit. But didn't Kevin find it unsatisfactory?" he continued. "That's right, Mom. Keep it coming. And what about her clothes?" "There were men among the colleagues, but she's showing too much skin. What do you think?" "As a woman, it's indecent to expose your collarbone. She should cover it with a scarf or turtleneck, he added. Whose fault is it that his colleagues suddenly invaded our house and I had to cook without even having time to change my clothes? I retorted. It's Kevin's, I concluded. I couldn't understand why I was constantly being criticized so harshly. She really is something, isn't she? Despite my efforts to teach her every day, she just doesn't seem to learn. Maybe she's just not very smart, my husband remarked. No doubt about it, his mother agreed. That day, I endured a lecture for nearly 2 hours. By the time I finally got a chance to take a bath and go to sleep, it was almost 4 a.m. I had to wake up soon to prepare my husband's lunchbox, so I decided to skip sleep altogether. Despite everything, my husband continued to try to teach me a lesson, especially when I kept visiting my younger sister. About a month and a half later, I received the heartbreaking news of my sister's passing. I wished it was a lie, I murmured, desperately hoping that my mother's announcement of my sister's passing was just a cruel joke. I had been warned countless times about my sister's critical condition, and I had even shared what I thought would be my last moments with her. I thought I was prepared, but my heart couldn't accept the reality. She was only 14 years old. I questioned whether my sister, who endured painful treatments and constant hospital stays, had truly found happiness in her life. As her older sister, I had been able to bring her joy. However, the last expression I saw on her face in the hospital was a smile. It seemed she hadn't suffered. You fought bravely and you did your best. Thank you for everything, I whispered through tears as I hugged my sister and bid her a final farewell. The funeral passed in a blur, and I realized I hadn't been home for several days. I informed my husband about my sister's passing, but as expected, he didn't bother to attend the funeral. Instead, he said something hurtful like, "You should prioritize me over the dead." Unable to bear such cruel words at such a time of grief, I ignored him and hung up the phone. When I finally returned home, weighed down by sorrow, my husband and mother-in-law were waiting for me at the door, looking stern and unwelcoming. You're quite late, aren't you? My husband remarked. A family member has passed away. I couldn't just come back in a few hours. How can you accuse me of lying so easily? I replied, feeling hurt and frustrated. What? Are you going through a rebellious phase? Always lying and defying me. Whose wife do you think you are? He retorted. Wait a minute, my sister really did die. It's not a lie, I insisted. I wonder. Even though you haven't greeted me at the door in days, even if you're wearing a skirted suit now, it's hard to believe you, he replied dismissively. Why is it hard to believe? I asked, confused and upset. If you truly love your husband, you should be able to do it. It's your duty as a wife to welcome your husband home. My husband scolded me, accusing me of being incompetent, and don't even think about denying it. Are you having an affair? What? No matter how many times I tell you, he dressed provocatively, and the other day you were flirting with my colleague. You're just interested in other men, aren't you? What a disgraceful woman, he continued, hurling hurtful accusations at me. What the heck? I started to argue back, fueled by anger and forgetting my fear of my husband. But then it happened. Divorce, huh? Fine by me. Someone as frivolous as Kate isn't fit for Kevin, right? My mother-in-law chimed in. My husband mumbled, trying to stop her, but I seized the opportunity. I agree with Mom. Let's get a divorce, I declared firmly. My husband kept pleading with me to reconsider, but I had made up my mind. I couldn't risk staying with him any longer, afraid that his violence might escalate. This was my chance, and I was certain it was the right time to end our marriage. So I quickly packed my things and left the house. My husband kept insisting, if you apologize, I'll forgive you. But I ignored him, thinking he must be delusional. He persisted until the end, grabbing my arm tightly and saying, wait. But I reacted instinctively, hitting him in the face with my bag and running away. I headed straight for a specific place, a room in an apartment that I had prepared just in case something like this happened. As soon as I entered the room, I received a call from my mother-in-law on my cell phone. Hello. Kate, did you arrive safely? She asked concernedly. Yes, I'm fine. I'm in a taxi, so Kevin won't find out, I reassured her. That's good. Make sure to hire a lawyer and proceed with the divorce quickly, she advised. Yes, I can't wait to start living independently, I replied. In reality, my mother-in-law and I had been pretending to be at odds in front of my husband. It all began the day my husband brought a colleague home. After his lecture ended and my husband fell asleep, my mother-in-law approached me. "Leave this house. Get away from my son," she urged me. Each time my husband criticized me, my mother-in-law, who seemed to have her suspicions, would ask, "Really?" It turned out her late husband had been very much like my husband, and she had endured a lot in her own marriage. In her generation, divorce was frowned upon, so she couldn't end her own marriage. But it seems she wanted something better for me. Watching the interactions between my husband and me, she must have felt compelled to help me. That's when my mother-in-law, with the help of a friend, found a safe place for me to live alone. It's hard to believe she's related to my husband. I can't thank her enough for her kindness. After living in the apartment she arranged for me for 2 weeks, my mother-in-law finally visited, pulling along a suitcase. "Welcome. I'm looking forward to this new chapter," she greeted me warmly. Living with us, my mother-in-law discovered that her own son had changed. Before, he seemed like a good person, the image he presented to his colleagues. My mother-in-law blamed herself, believing that his behavior was influenced by his father's genes or things he witnessed during his childhood. For me, regardless of the reasons behind his behavior, I believe the real issue lies in his inability as an adult to control his emotions. So, I don't hold my mother-in-law responsible. My husband now takes good care of my mother-in-law, but only because he thinks she's on his side. I fear what he might do if he discovers she's been helping me with the divorce. That's why I suggested she come live with me for a while when she prepared this house. At first, she hesitated, worrying that once my husband and I divorce, she'd become a stranger to me. But I assured her, saying, "After everything you've done for me, there's no daughter-in-law distinction. You're like my mother or my sister. That's how I see you." On the way back from my sister's funeral, my mother-in-law steered the conversation toward divorce, intentionally supporting me. Recognizing her intentions, I quickly agreed to the divorce. I thought it would take more time and preparation to leave my husband, but thanks to my mother-in-law's help, that time came sooner than expected. I have nothing but gratitude for her. Finally, the divorce was officially settled through the lawyer. 4 days later, as I returned to the apartment, I was startled to find my ex-husband waiting for me outside. "I found you. You're trying to trick me," he accused loudly. Does he know about what happened? I wondered silently, trying to remain composed. "What do you want now?" I asked, keeping my voice steady. "It's your fault that the credit card and bank account balances have decreased," he blamed me. "What are you talking about?" "I don't understand," I replied, feigning innocence. In truth, before the divorce, I was using my husband's credit card to gradually buy furniture for this house. I also quietly withdrew money from the bank account. It was all part of my plan, I confessed. When I discussed this with my mother-in-law, she encouraged me to go ahead with it, so I emptied the account without any hesitation. The reason why my unemployed mother-in-law and I can live comfortably, enjoying tea parties every night, is because of this money. That's my money. "You can't just do whatever you want without facing the consequences," he shouted angrily. "Remember the money we have? It's from the credit card we got after we got married and the money we saved together. Since we're married, it's both of ours," I explained, smiling at him. Suddenly, my mother-in-law returns from shopping and says, "Oh, you found out, didn't you?" Surprised, my ex-husband stands speechless behind me. "Hey, you're back," I greet my mother-in-law, trying to keep things normal. "What? Why is Mom here?" my husband asks, confused. "Well, because we're living together," I respond, with my husband still puzzled and my mother-in-law acting like it's no big deal. "So, you lied about going back to your parents' house, and why are you living with Kate, not me?" he questions. "I'm lost," Kevin admits. "Well, I've lost hope in you, Kevin," his mother replies. "What? But I'm the one who helped Kate get away," Kevin protests. "Actually, Kevin, Kate and I had already planned to split up before you even knew about it," his mother reveals. "But Mom, you were saying terrible things about Kate." "Yes, well, when I was criticizing her, I was really imagining you in her place," his mother confesses. "What do you mean?" Kevin asks, confused. "Because you're not the sharpest tool in the shed, and you get all worked up over silly things like a woman showing her collarbone. I was worried Kate would be in trouble. She deserved someone better than you for a husband," Kevin's mother bluntly tells him. Kevin is taken aback by his mother's harsh words. Meanwhile, I find her response so unexpectedly funny that I burst into laughter. "Mom, you do realize I'm your son, don't you?" Kevin asks, trying to make sense of it. "Unfortunately, yes. I guess I should have raised you differently," his mother responds dryly. I can't help it, and my laughter grows even louder. "You're just a chit off the old block, like your dad." Watching you mistreat Kate reminded me of my own past. I worried that if she left you, you'd come crawling back to me. I couldn't take that chance, so I left you and moved in with Kate, for both our sakes, Kevin's mother explains. Kevin's mother's confession brings tears to his eyes. He finally explodes. "Is it my fault?" "Why? You're my child. You've been neglecting me." His mother laughs, almost incredulously. "Do I still need to mother a grown man who's almost 30, she scoffs. A few neighbors gathered as our argument escalated in the yard. They chuckled at my ex-husband's dramatic outburst, saying, "He's really making a scene." With people watching, he didn't dare lay a hand on us and retreated to his house. But the next day, he seemed to have completely lost it. He started spreading rumors about us to his friends and co-workers who used to hang out at our place. "My ex may seem nice, but she ignores her husband," he complained to anyone who would listen. One woman at his office fired back, "You know, your behavior is exactly why women are wary of their husbands. It's becoming a societal problem." Although no one openly agreed, the vibe at work made it clear that Kevin was in the wrong, and he felt increasingly isolated. In the end, my ex-husband, who turned out to be quite sensitive, couldn't handle the judgmental stares and whispers anymore. He quickly quit his job. It's ironic how he was so quick to criticize me but couldn't handle criticism himself. How sad. Feeling alone, he sent me a lengthy letter trying to justify his behavior and boasting about his greatness as a man. The letter was a whopping 10 pages long. I was surprised when I received the thick envelope. I had blocked his texts, but if he could write this much by hand, I can only imagine how many texts he would have sent. His final line was, "If you ever miss me, feel free to contact me." So I playfully replied, "Then please go ahead with the property division." That sparked another big argument. I used to be afraid when we lived together, but not anymore. I stood my ground with my lawyer. Even before his mother suggested I leave, I had secretly been recording his behavior at home, preparing for a divorce. All those months enduring his hurtful words paid off. With the evidence, I successfully sorted out the property division. After that, I moved out from living with my ex-mother-in-law when I found a new job. It was still close enough for a reasonable commute. Surprisingly, she had found herself a boyfriend. It turned out the person who introduced us to the apartment was her new beau. She left with him, holding hands, and said, "Come visit us once we're settled." I must admit, my ex-mother-in-law really surprised me. She's a fantastic woman, and it's clear why she's so well liked, regardless of her age. As for me, I spent my best years focused on work after changing careers, thinking I might have missed my chance for remarriage. However, I started joining regular online gatherings with my colleagues. This gave me more opportunities to casually exchange contact info with people I didn't usually talk to, including a director from another department who showed interest in me. At first, I kept my distance because we worked for the same company. But as we began having private online chats about things we couldn't discuss at work, we grew closer and eventually started dating. The head of the department, who hadn't been in a relationship for years since his last girlfriend left him because of his workaholic tendencies, treated me with caution, saying, "I don't want to repeat the same mistake." And happily, we decided to tie the knot next year. I was concerned that his parents might not approve of me, considering I've been divorced before and he's getting married for the first time. However, I'm relieved to see his parents are accepting and even grateful, saying, "Thank you for being with our son." When I shared the news of my upcoming marriage with my ex-mother-in-law, she was genuinely happy for me. Oh, and about my ex-husband, it seems he found a job at a different bank and got remarried. But knowing his personality, it's likely he's been divorced again. That makes it 3 divorces now. He works at a bank and initially comes off as charming, but he tends to blame his ex-wives for the divorces, which makes it seem like women fall for him. Even when my ex-mother-in-law tries to warn women about his true nature at wedding receptions, he manages to manipulate them skillfully. Well, after 3 divorces, it's likely he'll start being avoided by women. I just hope there won't be any more victims. With the way he's going, he probably won't have a good ending because he's likely disliked by many women. But honestly, it's not my concern anymore.
I'm Harley. I'm 34 years old and I'm a bold and self-reliant woman. Let me tell you about the crazy journey of my relationship with my husband Dominic. Get ready because it's going to be a wild ride. Dominic and I had our ups and downs, like most couples. Even though I loved him a lot, there was one big problem. His mom, Charlotte. She was always critical of me. No matter what I did, she never seemed happy. Whenever we have family gatherings, Charlotte would make mean comments about my cooking. She acted like she was a fancy chef and I couldn't cook at all. She complained about the taste, how things looked, and say I wasn't as good as her. It felt like she was trying to prove that I wasn't good enough for her son. But it wasn't just about my cooking. Charlotte had a talent for making me feel small in other ways too. Once, at a dinner party, I proudly told everyone about a big promotion I got at work, hoping for a pat on the back. Instead, she just brushed it off like it was no big deal, saying it wasn't as good as what her friends' kids had achieved. It made me feel invisible, like she didn't care about my success. And our wedding? It should have been a happy day, but Charlotte made it her mission to criticize everything, from where we had it to what colors we used. Nothing was good enough for her. She'd whisper her disapproval to anyone who'd listen, ruining what should have been the best day of my life. You'd think my husband, Dominic, would stand up for me, right? Well, not quite. Bless him, he had this weird blind spot when it came to his mom. He couldn't see how she treated me, made me feel small, and acted like I didn't matter. It hurt a lot. And his dad, Caleb, was the only one who seemed to get it and call her out. But I wish Dominic would be the one to stand up for me. After all, I was his wife, his partner, and I deserved his support no matter what. But every time, I felt let down. Dominic stayed quiet, letting his mom's words hurt me over and over again. It was like being cut by tiny knives, again and again. I wanted his love, but I also wanted him to stick up for me. It wasn't just about defending me from Charlotte's mean comments. It was about fighting for our relationship and showing me I was important. I hoped he'd see through his mom's tricks and put us first. But it seemed like he was stuck in the family drama, unable to break free. As time went on, I started to feel more and more frustrated. I felt like he didn't care about me or what I needed. It was like we were stuck in a bad cycle that we couldn't get out of. The beginning of the end came when Dominic said he had to go on yet another business trip, this time to Tampa for a week. Another trip? Seriously, Dominic? It's a really important meeting that couldn't wait, babe, he said. But you just got back from another one. Can't someone else do it? And why Tampa all of a sudden? I asked, surprised. He had only just come back from a different business trip, so this sudden one made me wonder. I tried to tell him how I felt, hoping he'd understand, but his answers didn't help much. But I let it go. I'll bake, even though I'm not sure about this. You know, sometimes things just come up unexpectedly in business, I said reluctantly. Yeah, it's just business, okay. Even though I had my doubts, I didn't push it too much and off he went on this business trip. The first 3 days of Dominic's trip went by, and my suspicions got even stronger. I decided to FaceTime him like I usually did when he was away, but he kept choosing audio calls instead. Hey, can we do a video chat tonight? Sorry, the hotel Wi-Fi isn't great, so audio calls are better for now. But everything's fine, don't worry. Wi-Fi problems, it seemed too convenient, didn't it? Babe, don't worry about it, Dominic reassured me. But I couldn't help but worry. Sometimes I'd hear a woman's voice in the background, and it made my doubts grow stronger, making me even more uneasy. I felt like Dominic was hiding something, like there was more to this trip than he was letting on. The trust between us was starting to crack, leaving me with a sense of uncertainty that hung over our relationship. Despite my doubts, I stayed quiet and accepted his excuses for those 3 days. It was hard to believe. 3 whole days had gone by, and I still hadn't seen Dominic. Not only did he avoid video calls, but our audio calls kept getting shorter and shorter. I had to find out what was really going on. On the 4th day, I tried to FaceTime Dominic again, hoping to get some answers. But when the call connected, instead of seeing Dominic, it was Charlotte who answered. She was sitting in a beach chair with sunglasses on and a tan. I was shocked. Charlotte, what are you doing there? Where's Dominic? She smirked, looking pleased with herself. Oh, Harley dear, you didn't think he was on a business trip, did you? Honestly, I can't say he needed to go to Tampa to keep this from you, but I suppose that just shows how pushy you can be. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Dominic had lied to me and his mother was there, enjoying herself while I was left in the dark. Anger started to bubble up inside me as I realized they had been deceiving me. So you're telling me you both planned this secret vacation without me? Well, yes, she admitted. Why? I demanded. Because I wanted to visit my hometown, and I wanted to do it with my son. Is that so wrong? Charlotte replied. Of course not. But why keep it a secret? Why exclude me? I pressed. Because this trip is just for me and my son, she explained. But I'm his wife. I should have been included. This could have been a chance for us to work out whatever issues you have with me, and I could really use a vacation too, I argued. Well, tough luck. You didn't get one. Sorry, not sorry, Charlotte retorted. I'm going to set aside your childish behavior for a moment to say this. Even if you wanted this special trip without me, it would have been okay. I'm an adult, you can tell me if I'm not invited to something. I can handle it. But here's the thing. We kept it a secret from you because we simply didn't want you to know. It's as simple as that. We didn't care if you wanted to come or if you would have been okay with us going alone. We just didn't want you to know. But your constant calls were annoying, so I decided to just tell you, Charlotte explained. Are you serious, Charlotte? What's gotten into you? Has all that sun fried your brain? I shot back. How dare you insult me like that? You're taking this too far. You're acting like such a drama queen, she retorted. I'm not being dramatic. I have every right to be upset, especially after years of putting up with your nonsense, I responded. Charlotte shrugged, pretending to be innocent. Oh, Harley dear, sometimes it's better not to know everything your husband does. It was just a little secret getaway, just for us, something special. You wouldn't understand the bond we have. A rush of emotions flooded through me, betrayal, anger, and sadness. It was obvious they had planned this together, leaving me out and feeling completely deceived. As I realized the extent of their deceit, I couldn't help but wonder what else they had lied about. How long had these secret trips been happening? Why were they so insistent on keeping me in the dark, and what else were they hiding from me? The trust I had in Dominic was falling apart, and I snapped out of my thoughts when I heard his voice getting closer. Mom, why did you answer the phone? What's going on? Dominic's voice sounded tense. It's time Holly knew the truth. It's been 4 days, his mother replied firmly. Dominic snatched the phone from his mother, his face going pale as he realized the mess he was in. He stared at the screen, knowing he was caught in a lie. Why did you lie about the business trip, Dominic? And the Wi-Fi was fine the past few days, wasn't it? I demanded. I didn't want you to be mad at me, he admitted. Well, of course I'm mad. I thought you were avoiding me. Is it strange that you want to spend time with your mom? Yeah, a bit. But Dominic, you haven't been standing up for me, and I've been feeling distant from you already. If you wanted mom-son time, you could have just said so. Even if I was upset about not being invited, it would have been better than feeling like this, I argued. Anger surged through me as Dominic tried to explain himself. It was clear he hadn't thought about how his actions would affect me. Dominic, I wouldn't have been upset if you had just been honest with me. It's not about the trip itself. It's about you keeping it a secret. That's what bothers me. I thought you were cheating on me, for crying out loud. What? No way, Dominic exclaimed. Yeah, well, when I heard women's voices in the background of your calls, I started to wonder, I said bitterly. I have a special bond with my mom. Sometimes we just need to get away, Dominic tried to explain. In Tampa of all places, you both hate Tampa. And what about Gertrude? Weren't we supposed to visit her? I questioned. So this secret was just between you two? What about your dad? Did he know? I pressed. I can't talk right now. I hope this trip was worth it, because when you come back, I'm not sure you'll still have a wife, I said firmly. Holly, please wait, Dominic pleaded. But I couldn't wait. I ended the call and ignored all of Dominic's attempts to reach me. I paced back and forth in my room, trying to make sense of it all. Why would he hide something so simple from me? One thing about me, when you lie about small things, I start to wonder what big things you're hiding. It was strange to think of Dominic spending time with his mom on this secret trip. Honestly, I would have preferred if he was cheating on me. I was frustrated with my distant and secretive husband and his difficult mother. I knew what I had to do. I needed to talk to someone who would understand. I picked up my phone and called my father-in-law, hoping he could offer some clarity and support. Hey, it's Holly. I need to talk to you about something important. I poured my heart out, sharing every detail of the deception that had tainted my marriage. Anger, sadness, and betrayal swirled inside me as I recounted Dominic's lies. From his fake business trip to his desperate attempts to keep me in the dark. His betrayal cut deep. But what hurt even more was Charlotte's involvement. I described how she seemed to enjoy keeping me ignorant, relishing the power she had over me. The weight of their deceit felt suffocating, and as I spoke, I could sense Caleb's shock and hurt in his responses. Caleb's voice turned serious, matching the gravity of my words. What? I had no idea about any of this. I'm so sorry you had to find out like this. As soon as I found out, I called you. Charlotte told me she was going to Tampa to visit her mother and repair their relationship. I believed her. Well, Dominic just confessed that they weren't planning to visit Gertrude at all. And Gertrude has no clue about any visit, I revealed. Caleb's shock and hurt were evident over the phone. It was becoming apparent that Charlotte had been weaving a web of lies, manipulating everyone involved. I can't believe Charlotte would do something like this. It's one thing to have disagreements, but to deceive her own family. It's unforgivable, Caleb said, his voice heavy with disappointment. They both need to learn a lesson, I agreed. That's a brilliant idea. I was seething with anger, ready to do anything to teach Dominic and Charlotte a lesson. After our call ended with words of encouragement and excitement for what was to come, I waited eagerly to hear back from Caleb about his mother-in-law's reaction. A couple of hours passed and Caleb delivered the good news. As Caleb described his conversation with Gertrude, the seriousness of the situation became even clearer. His voice shook with a mixture of anger and sadness. I told her everything, Harley. She was furious, devastated even. She couldn't believe her own daughter would deceive everyone like this, Caleb explained. She deserves to know the truth, Caleb. Charlotte has been treating us horribly for too long, I replied. Gertrude has decided to take action, Harley. She's planning to teach Charlotte a lesson she won't forget. She's fed up with Charlotte's behavior and wants to show her what real rudeness looks like. I hope you don't mind me asking, but what exactly is the issue between Charlotte and Gertrude? Well, Harley, I'm sure you'll find it ironic, but Charlotte always claimed her mother was very rude and cruel to her. They've had a rocky relationship since Charlotte ran away at 16, being in and out of touch for years. It's very toxic, but after talking to Gertrude for the past hour, I'm starting to think Charlotte was the problem all along. It's crazy. I've been married to Shaw for all these years, and you and Dom have only been married for 3, yet you've managed to uncover more family secrets in this short time. I should have been more curious. I should have stood up more. How could you have known, Caleb? Don't be hard on yourself, please. You were just being a good husband, trusting what your wife told you. And you stood up more than your son. That means something. Thanks, Harley, for everything. I'm glad I could help, even though it's unfortunate it came to this, I remarked. Yeah, I guess so, but I'm looking forward to Gertrude showing them how tough she can be, Caleb responded. The next day arrived, and the fallout from our revelations began. Dominic, unable to grasp the seriousness of the situation, called me in frustration, his words filled with irritation. Holly, what did you do? What do you mean? Don't play dumb with me. Gertrude is here, and nobody else knows we're in town except you. She said she came because she heard we were here. I'm glad she knows the truth. Everyone deserves to know, after all your sneaking around. How could you do this, Harley? Dominic's voice was filled with frustration. In the background, I heard some commotion, likely from 2 female voices. One sounded much older, which I assumed was Gertrude unleashing her anger. Dominic, maybe it's time Charlotte faces the consequences of her actions. She needs to understand what it feels like to be deceived, I replied firmly. Suddenly, I heard Charlotte's voice. You ungrateful little rat. How dare you expose us like this? As I listened, I couldn't help but chuckle softly, though there was bitterness in my laughter. Before I could respond, I heard another voice, stern and authoritative. Don't you dare speak to that young lady like that. I've had enough of your insolence. You've been telling everyone how rude and nasty I was to you, huh? When all I did was care for you and help you out of trouble. You were such a problem child, lying about everything and being nasty to everyone. And I see that lifestyle has followed you into adulthood. We haven't seen or talked to each other since you left, and this is how you want to act. Do you think I'm rude and nasty? Just wait, I'll show you rude and nasty. I heard things breaking, like a glass or a vase, and it made me a bit fearful as the shouting continued. I couldn't imagine how scared Dominic must have been, but I realized that this was the consequence of his actions. He was an adult, responsible for his choices. I was done making excuses for them. They were getting what they deserved, and I was glad to hear it unfold. For the next few days, Dominic kept asking for my forgiveness because his grandmother was driving him crazy. Each time he called, I reminded him that this was his fault. Meanwhile, Charlotte and Gertrude continued arguing back and forth. I was surprised they didn't get kicked out of the hotel they were staying in. As their 7-day trip came to an end, Dominic revealed something even more shocking. "Holly, please, you need to talk to Gertrude." I tried talking to Dad, but he's still upset with my mom and me, Dominic pleaded. "Slow down, what's going on? You two were supposed to be coming back, right?" I asked, trying to keep up. "I thought you learned your lesson," I added. "Well, Gertrude doesn't think so. She's planning to board the plane with us," Dominic explained. "What? She wants to follow us home and make sure my mom starts acting like a respectable adult and not some crazed teenager," he continued. "Wow, that's unexpected. Maybe next time you'll stand up for what's right and not go along with your mother's schemes." "See you when you get here," I replied. "Harley, I regret everything. Haven't you punished us enough? Please talk to Gertrude and tell her she doesn't have to come with us," Dominic pleaded desperately. "I don't think so, sweetie. Who am I to argue with that woman? She's terrifying," I responded to Dominic's plea. "How do you think we feel?" he asked. "Honestly, Dom, I don't care how you feel. You've been lying to me for God knows how long, and you never stood up for me when your mom treated me poorly. You're getting your karma. Don't be mad at me now. Have a safe flight." "Well, as safe a flight as you came with these two ladies being together," I retorted firmly. As I hung up the phone, a sense of satisfaction washed over me. Finally, the tables had turned and I had stood up against the toxicity that had plagued our lives for too long. Gertrude, the unexpected ally, had unleashed her own brand of justice, and I couldn't help but feel a glimmer of excitement. Now I await their return, expecting stories from Gertrude, as I'm sure she continued to make their lives difficult on that flight. Revenge never tasted so sweet. Hey everyone, I'm Sandra and I'm 28 years old. I live in Houston, Texas, but I'm getting ready to move soon. I was in a really bad marriage for a year and a half, but I got out of it with the help of my dad and the police. It was my fault though. I got myself into that mess. If I had been smarter, I might have said no to getting married. I've always been a shy and quiet girl. I didn't really enjoy hanging out with people. Most of the time, I just stay on my computer, lost in the online world. Sometimes I'd go to pubs for a drink, but I'd get uncomfortable when strangers tried to befriend me. I'd always turn them down because they were strangers, and I worried they might try to harm me. When I was 6, my mom passed away because she had a heart problem that wasn't treated. After that, my dad took care of me. He's been a sailor since he was 23, going on long trips exploring the sea. I really missed him when he was away. He used to send letters to my mom and try calling her whenever he could. But when my mom died, he came back to be with me. He found me crying a lot next to her coffin. He picked me up and tried to comfort me. "Hey, my little girl, did you miss me? You've grown so much." "Papa." Hey there, Dove, it's okay now. Daddy's here. Everything will be okay. I promise. All right. Even though he said that, I kept crying in his arms, holding onto his uniform tightly. My dad gently patted my back and hummed my favorite lullaby until I fell asleep. Later that night, I saw him sitting alone on the couch, drinking. He looked really sad. He kept saying things to himself, then buried his face in a cushion and started crying. It was the second time I'd ever seen him cry. The first was when I fell off a slide and got hurt. Maybe he blamed himself for everything that happened. He took a break from work for 2 months before leaving again. Before he left me with my grandma, who took care of me while he was away. Be good to Granny, okay? She's here for you. You'll be a good girl and help her out. And you? I'll be back soon, my dove. I asked Granny to teach you how to bake your favorite treats and cook your favorite meals. Will you learn from her? Yes, Dad, I will. Next time I come back, I'd love to taste your dishes. But for now, I have to go. My car's waiting. You take care of yourself, honey. He left. I knew he'd be back in about 6 months. He often sent me gifts and little souvenirs from the places he visited. Most of the time, I stayed indoors and helped Grandma with her chores. I didn't really like playing with other kids. As I got older, I relied more and more on the comfort of my room. Eventually, my dad sent me back to our old house. I really disliked going to college and interacting with people. The internet gave me confidence that the outside world couldn't. It's exciting and comforting to talk to people I might never meet in person. I can share my thoughts and feelings without worrying about being judged for being shy. Through the screen, I found friends who truly get me. I've met people from all over the world with different backgrounds and experiences. Learning about their lives is fascinating, and it shows how alike we all are despite our differences. The internet connects us across continents, bringing us together in ways we couldn't have imagined before. There, I met a guy named Ricky. He said he was a streamer. We started chatting, then moved on to video calls. I often wore a Batman mask to hide my identity, and he covered his face with a scarf and wore a beanie. Hi Sandra, it's great to finally see you. Hello Rick, nice to meet you, while virtually. Same here. So how are you feeling today? How many people have you chatted with? I'm okay, just a little nervous to be honest. That's totally normal. But don't worry, I'm not scary. I'm just as awkward as you. This is our first real chat. So Rick, tell me more about yourself. How did you get into this online platform? Well, I really enjoy meeting new people and seeing things from different angles. I tend to spend a lot of time at home, so this online community seemed like a great way to connect with others. How about you? I'm pretty much your typical introvert, so I struggle a bit with socializing in person. Online platforms give me a sense of ease and let me be more open. I get it. Virtual connections can be surprisingly meaningful. I'm glad we found each other. We talked for a while, discovering shared interests and swapping stories about our lives. As the conversation flowed, I started feeling more relaxed. It's funny, I never expected to feel so comfortable talking to someone online. Thanks for making it easy. The feeling's mutual, Sandra. You're great to talk to, and I'm happy we connected. If you ever want to chat again, just give me a shout. I'm usually online playing Mario. Oh, forgot to ask, do you play games? Actually, no, I mostly blog and browse Reddit. There's so much interesting stuff there. I feel like I learn more from other people's stories than from real-life examples. Totally. Sometimes real life can be a drag. It's cool to meet new people. Like, look at me. I trust my online friends more than the ones I know in person. The best part about online stuff is you don't have to feel pressure to keep in touch. You can take it or leave it. It's up to you. As Ricky and I kept talking, we formed a real bond despite being strangers online. Our shared understanding and open-mindedness made us feel like friends beyond the screen. I'm not sure where this connection will take me, but one thing is for sure, my online experiences have shaped who I am. As I go through life, I'll always carry the lessons I've learned from my digital world with me. My dad, on the other hand, is very cautious. If he knew I was making friends online, he'd be really mad. Last time he talked to me, he sat me down and lectured me during dinner. How are your studies, Dove? I've graduated. Well, you wouldn't know. You weren't there. Oh, Sandra, that's not good. I know I was really busy, and I'm sorry for missing out. I even emailed you saying I'd be there for your birthday. Tomorrow's my pumpkin's birthday. Stop calling me names. I'm not a little kid anymore. To me, you'll always be my little dove. Anyway, what are your plans for the future? Are you thinking of working? I'm not sure yet. What do you mean you're not sure? What are your friends up to these days? I don't have any friends. What? Listen, I didn't send you to your mom's place so you could just stay home and not interact with the world. There's so much out there, so many people you'll miss out on if you don't get out there, honey. That's the problem, Dad. I don't really know how, but I'll try. I mean, I do have friends, but they're all online. Online? Sandra, that's not the best way to make friends. Oh, come on. All right, fine. How about we go out today? Maybe do a little shopping, just you and me. I haven't been out much lately, but I don't know if I can. Of course you can, Sandra. You have to try. This isn't a healthy way to live. I understand ever since Marissa passed away, Why are you bringing Mom into this? What are you trying to say? I'm not trying to say anything, honey. I'm just saying that we need to find ways to move forward from past hurts. We both love your mom, but we need to learn to move on. I don't know why, but I got really angry. I slammed the table and stood up. I didn't even want to finish my food. I took my plates to the sink. Sandra, please don't give your father that attitude. I was just trying to help you. Why can't you see that? You don't know everything about me, so don't try to. I was so angry. I went online to find Rick. At first, Ricky seemed like a nice person, understanding and willing to listen. It felt good to have someone to talk to, especially about the frustrations I've been dealing with. As an introvert, I always found comfort at home, with my computer screen as my companion. While others went out into the world, I preferred the safety of my virtual haven, where I could be myself without the pressure of face-to-face interactions. Lately, my dad had been pushing me more and more, especially since I told him how much time I spent online. I knew this would happen, he just didn't understand. He thought staying in my room all the time would hold me back from growing and learning. He wanted me to step out of my comfort zone, and that scared me. I vented my frustrations to Ricky, hoping he'd understand what I was going through. Hey Sandra, do you want to meet up? We're both introverts, so we can go somewhere quiet, with not too many people. I know a place like that. I'm not sure. It feels really sudden. I need some time to think. I just wanted to let you know what's been going on. Okay, no problem. I can wait. Whenever you're ready, you're always welcome to come by. Here's my address. Why are you being so nice to me? I'm just a stranger, aren't I? Because I like you. Like me, really? Yeah, I know it might sound strange, but I really want to get to know you. And if you ever feel the same, you know where to find me. It was a big step for me, stepping out into the real world. My heart was racing with excitement and nerves as I stood outside Rick's house, finally ready to meet the person I'd been talking to online for the past month. Surprisingly, he lived really close to me, just a 20-minute drive or so. I took a deep breath, gathering my courage before knocking on the weathered wooden door. It creaked open, and there was Rick with a warm smile that instantly calmed my nerves. He was quite charming. His house might not have been fancy at first glance, but there was something cozy about it. It felt authentic and welcoming. As I stepped inside, I couldn't help but notice the small details that spoke volumes about Ricky's character. The bookshelves filled with well-loved classics, the stack of board games, his computer setup, and so on. Welcome, welcome to my humble abode. Your presence graces my domain, fair master. Some gaming talk I might not fully grasp, but thank you. This is a really cozy place. Do you live alone? Nope, fair princess. I live with my mom. She stays downstairs, while I have the top floor all to myself. Come, I'll give you a tour. We spent the day talking, laughing, and getting to know each other even better. Meeting in person added a new dimension to our connection, and I grew to appreciate the person behind the screen even more. Rick was just as kind and genuine as I had hoped, and his quirky sense of humor only made me like him more. As the sun set, Rick suggested we take a walk outside, and I agreed eagerly. As we strolled through the nearby park, our conversation flowed effortlessly, and my initial nervousness melted away. Being with him in person felt like a natural extension of our online chats, but with a deeper level of closeness. Wait, so you didn't celebrate your birthday? No, I didn't really feel like it, especially after the argument with my dad. I'm really sorry to hear that. I'm sure he'll come around. He's your dad after all. I made a mistake. I trusted him too much. His words seemed sweet like honey, but I didn't realize I was just another one of his games. When we started dating, he became overly possessive and jealous. He always wanted me to talk to him on the phone or online. If I tried to chat with anyone else, he'd get angry. He kept saying he loved me and wanted to protect me. I believed him. Why did I believe him? As our relationship got stronger, it became clear that his mom didn't approve of me. It was tough to know she felt that way about me, someone she hadn't even met. Her disapproval weighed on me, and I couldn't understand why she couldn't see the love we had. Rick's close relationship with his mom was obvious, and he often called himself a mama's boy. While I respected their bond, it also made me feel distant. I knew family was important to him, but I felt like an outsider dealing with his mom's disapproval. The strangest thing was that his mother kind of wanted us to get married. She knew I didn't have anyone else in the world since my dad wasn't around. Maybe she thought I'd be useful to her. Not every parent is perfect. Just look at your dad. At least my mom cares about me. Please, Rick, when you talk like that, it really hurts. But you know I'm the one who loves you, right? Your dad doesn't love you like I do. So stop complaining about my life and try to compromise. We ended up having a secret wedding. Ricky didn't want me to invite my dad, saying he'd never approve. He managed to make me believe that my dad didn't care about me. I went along with it and got married to him quietly. I knew it was risky, but I was weak. You can call me weak, but my environment shaped me and I blamed myself for not standing up for myself. After a few months of being married, I began to see a side of his mother I never expected, one filled with cruelty and malice. She seemed to enjoy making me suffer, deliberately making me doubt myself and leaving me feeling shattered and defeated. It started with small comments and passive-aggressive remarks, slowly wearing down my confidence. I tried to ignore it, hoping her disapproval would go away over time. But instead, it only got worse, turning into a constant stream of emotional abuse. What is this? Is this supposed to be food? You think my son can eat this mess? Go and make it again, you idiot. Why is this place so dirty? Are you blind? What a sloppy girl. Get up, lazy girl. Take out the trash now. Honestly, have your parents taught you nothing? Her words were like daggers, leaving wounds that cut deep into my soul. She questioned every move I made, belittled my accomplishments, and manipulated situations to make me feel unworthy of Ricky's love. Meanwhile, my husband stayed in his room, lost in his music or video games. It felt like I was trapped in a never-ending nightmare, unable to escape her grip. Inside, I was filled with rage. I blamed myself for being so weak and stupid. How could I let myself be treated like this? I missed my dad terribly. I regretted our fights and pushing him away. I yelled at him to leave me alone, and with a heavy heart, he did a few days after my birthday. Now, I felt stuck and believed I deserved every bit of it. One day, feeling unwell and feverish, I curled up on the sofa, hoping a nap would help. Just as I was about to doze off, I was jolted awake by a sudden splash of cold water. It was Ally with a disgusted look on her face. What the hell are you doing sleeping on our couch? Did you get our groceries like I told you to? I didn't respond. I see. You want your old mother-in-law to do all the dirty work while you just lay around, you devil. She slapped me and started calling for Ricky. I couldn't take it anymore. I snapped. I'm not doing anything for you or your useless son. I've had enough of your. Go bother someone else. I can't and I won't take it anymore. I didn't receive an ounce of respect from this family, and I didn't care anymore. As I was about to leave, something blunt hit the back of my head, and I blacked out. When I regained consciousness, I found myself in a dimly lit room. My head throbbed with pain, and I struggled to stand up. Where was I? I could hear faint sounds approaching, growing louder as they neared. Crawling towards the noise, I found a metal door with a small window. It opened, revealing Ricky's grinning face. Is my wife scared of the dark? What is this, Ricky? Please let me out. This isn't funny. Shut up. This is what you get for disrespecting my mother. Now I'll make sure you never see the light of day again. Please, Ricky, I'm sorry. I'll do anything. I promise I won't complain. Please let me out, I beg you. Not so fast, Buttercup. If you behave, I might consider letting you out. For now, this will be your little hideout. It's not like you enjoy going out anyway. And who do you have? Your mom is gone. Your dad doesn't care about you. You're just a forgotten soul. My house gave you a chance to start over, but you blew it. I'll make it right. I didn't mean to upset you, Ricky. Please let me out. I hate being in the dark. Daddy's girl, huh? Why don't you call out to him? Maybe he'll magically appear and rescue his princess. He closed the window and left. As I sat in a cold, dark basement, fear and anger consumed me. How did things get to this point? All I did was stand up for myself against my mother-in-law's unfair treatment, and now I was paying the price. As I reached into my pockets, I felt my broken and shattered phone. I lost all hope. But then, I noticed a faint blinking light on the screen. I still had a chance to call my dad. With trembling hands and tears streaming down my face, I dialed his number. My voice shook as I told him what had happened, desperately hoping he could somehow rescue me from this nightmare. 2 days later, when I was barely hanging on and despair threatened to overwhelm me, I heard a car pull up outside the house. My heart raced as I strained to hear footsteps coming down the stairs. When the door swung open and I saw my father standing tall and resolute, a wave of relief and disbelief washed over me. I couldn't believe he had dropped everything to come save me. He had brought some cops with him. Rick and Allie were arrested on the spot. They tried to lie, but it was futile. You have no idea what you'll face in court, you psychopaths. What have you done to my little girl? We are truly sorry. We never meant any harm. I was planning to let her go today, I swear, Rick pleaded. And who are you to decide my daughter's fate? You're nothing but a pathetic scumbag from the gutter. All right, Sandra, let's go. As my dad led me out of that dark basement, I felt a newfound sense of strength and determination. The ordeal had been incredibly tough, but it showed me that I could overcome anything with my dad's unwavering support. From that moment on, I promised myself to stand up for myself and never let anyone silence me again. I hope Ricky and his mom rot in jail. I'm planning to move to New Orleans with my dad. Texas doesn't feel safe anymore, and I'll make sure to never trust online strangers again. Lesson learned. My husband surprised me by saying I should go back to my parents' house because my parents are already living in our house. I felt shocked by his sudden words, but he seemed to think he was being reasonable. He said, "Do you have a problem with that? Don't argue with me. I'm fine with divorcing you if you do." Lately he had been distant and unkind, and I had my own complaints. I had been thinking about divorcing him too, but I didn't think it was fair for him to kick me out of our home. I thought to myself, I'm the one paying $1,800 for our expenses. Does he even remember that? As I looked at him in shock, he got angry and said, "Leave this house now. My parents won't feel good if you're here." I didn't really get why I had to go, but I said, "Okay, I'll take all my stuff with me." Once I agreed, he seemed happy and said, "Then do it," and walked away. Right away, I called a shop to sell my things. My name's Emily, and I live with my husband, Robert, who's 5 years older than me. We met through mutual friends, and our first hangout turned into spending a whole day together. Robert mentioned he wanted to be a voice actor, and I was impressed by his deep voice. I've always liked soothing voices, so I felt drawn to him. It seemed like he felt the same because we exchanged numbers and decided to hang out more. Before we knew it, we were dating, even though we never really talked about it. I had just graduated from college and started working, so dating someone more mature seemed exciting. My friend Ashley was worried about the 5-year age gap, but I reassured her that it wasn't a big deal. I liked Robert a lot, and he felt the same about me, so I wasn't concerned. Eventually, Ashley agreed, trusting my judgment. Robert and I dated for about 3 years, and then he brought up the idea of getting married. I had already told my parents about him and his age, so they were excited to meet him. With their expectations in mind, I often wondered when he would propose. He ended up proposing during one of his usual visits to my apartment, where we just hang out and relax. It wasn't the most romantic setting, but it felt like something Robert would do, and I was okay with that. When he asked, I simply said, "Sure, let's get married." So maybe we were both a little casual about it. After that, we visited each other's parents, but I didn't really connect with Robert's parents. When we went to Robert's family home, it was filled with what looked like old-fashioned items, but they seemed to be fake. When we met Robert's parents, they were wearing expensive clothes and lots of flashy jewelry. They seemed like they were trying too hard to look rich. Our tastes and values were very different, and I didn't think we would get along. Robert's mom even made a rude comment about my appearance, which hurt my feelings. I was surprised that the parents of the man I wanted to marry acted like this. But in the end, it's Robert and I who are getting married. If I don't like his parents, I don't have to spend much time with them. So I decided not to let it bother me too much. After we got married and moved into our condo, Robert seemed worried about something. "Hey, who was that woman in the blue dress at our wedding?" "Which woman in a blue dress?" There were a few guests at our wedding who wore blue, so I couldn't figure out who he was talking about based on that alone. "You know, the one who gave a speech as your best friend." "Are you talking about Ashley?" "Yes, she was wearing a blue dress." When Robert said this, he seemed a bit uneasy. "What's wrong with Ashley?" I asked, confused by his reaction. "Oh, it's not a big deal. The other day, I thought I saw someone who looked like her when I was going to work. That's when I remembered she gave a speech as your best friend at the wedding." I was confused by Robert's sudden interest in Ashley and his flustered demeanor, but he just laughed it off and went to his room before I could ask more. A little while later, Ashley called me with some news. "Listen, Emily, my boyfriend's coming back to the US next year." Ashley had been dating her boyfriend since high school. They'd known each other since elementary school, but he moved away in middle school. They kept in touch through letters and finally reunited in high school when he confessed his feelings for her. I always loved hearing Ashley's love stories. Despite her boyfriend being away working at an international branch for a few years, they stayed close and communicated regularly. Do you think he might propose once he's back, and then you guys will get married? Oh, Emily, you're always jumping to conclusions. Just make sure to invite me to the wedding. I promise I'll give a heartfelt speech. Of course. After the beautiful speech you gave at your wedding, I'll definitely need you to do the same for mine. Don't set the bar too high. We chuckled together as we sipped our tea. Our conversations flowed easily, and we trusted each other completely. Whenever one of us had a problem, the other was always there, ready to lend a listening ear. Around this time, I began to notice that Robert was coming home later and later. Working late again today. Yeah, you think I shouldn't work or something. Even after we got married, Robert held onto his dream of becoming a voice actor. He was working hard to pursue his passion, but it meant he had to take on part-time jobs to make ends meet. Unfortunately, all the money he earned from those jobs went straight into his voice acting classes, so I had to cover all our living expenses. This meant we couldn't really save up together. As time went on, I realized that Robert wasn't willing to give up on his dream for the sake of our family. I started to worry about how much overtime Robert was putting in at his part-time job. It added to my concerns about our financial situation. Hey, haven't you been working too much lately? They shouldn't be making you do so much overtime, even if it's just a part-time job. I told you I'm fine. More money is always better. Just keep your opinions to yourself. By then, Robert had stopped using my name and just called me you. When we got married, I thought he would speak to me kindly and more often, but it seemed like harsh words were all I heard from him. His once gentle voice had turned rough, and he started drinking a lot. Sometimes his voice even sounded hoarse, which worried me because voice acting requires a healthy throat. But it seemed like he didn't want to hear about it. He started avoiding talking to me, and eventually he would ignore me even when we were in the same room. That's when Ashley called me. She said she had something important to discuss. So I suggested we meet up since I had my own worries. We decided to meet at a karaoke booth so we could talk privately. Ashley seemed really cautious and picked a room where she could see the counter and staff from the door. You chose this room specifically? Yes, I wanted a spot where the staff could see if there was a suspicious person outside our door. A suspicious person? Is that related to what you wanted to discuss? Ashley nodded in response to my question. She had been feeling like someone was following her ever since she left her job about a month ago. Now, she even felt followed on her days off. The reason she chose a room where the staff could easily see was that she thought the person stalking her might try to eavesdrop on our conversation. Did you talk to the police about it? I tried, but since there's no actual contact, they can't do much. What about your boyfriend? He's coming back in a month. I thought I'd discuss it with him too, but I wanted to first talk to you, someone close by. I see. Ashley hadn't gotten a good look at her stalker because she was too scared, so she didn't know if it was a man or a woman. I decided to keep an eye out from a distance to identify the person stalking her, and through that, I came to understand who it was. Though I couldn't bring myself to discuss my troubled relationship with Robert, looking back, maybe it was for the best, because the one following my best friend Ashley was none other than my husband Robert. He would claim he had to work late every day, but after his shift, he would hang around near Ashley's workplace and follow her when she left. I couldn't believe that the person scaring Ashley was someone so close to me. When I found out, I was shocked, and the expression on Robert's face as he followed Ashley was chilling. He had this creepy, unsettling grin. I fell in love with and married this man, but the moment I saw his true face, the love I thought would last forever turned cold. I told Ashley the truth and urged her to move right away. With the help of her colleagues, she arranged for someone to drive her from the underground parking lot to her new place for a while. After we took these precautions, Robert's frustration grew, and one day, it boiled over. My parents are going to live here, so you need to go back to your parents' house. I was shocked by Robert's sudden demand, but he seemed convinced he was being reasonable. If you have a problem with that, then I'm fine with divorcing you, he said, starting to lose his temper. Even though I had my own issues with him and had considered divorce, I didn't think he could just kick me out of our home. I'm the one paying $1,800 for our monthly expenses. I wonder if Robert even remembers that. When I gave him a skeptical look, he got angry. Just leave already. My parents can't move in if you're still here. Why do I have to leave? I don't understand at all. But I said, okay, I'll take everything I bought with me. Seeing me agree, Robert just told me to hurry up and walked away. I immediately contacted a local buyback service. The next day, they came to our apartment. At first, Robert smirked, thinking I was leaving. But when he saw the workers assessing all our furniture and appliances, his eyes widened in shock. After the evaluation was done, except for what was in Robert's room, a staff member handed me a quote, saying, "The total value is $22,000. I quickly signed, saying, "Okay, sell it all." Suddenly, Robert snapped back to reality and grabbed my arm. "Why are you selling everything? My parents are going to live here. How can they if there's no furniture?" I shook off his grip. "What do you mean? When we got married, you told me you were broke because you were paying for your acting classes. You asked me to handle the rent, furniture, and living expenses. I never knew you were that broke. I feel deceived. Remember the $1,800 I've been covering every month? From now on, you'll pay that. And with your parents moving in, I bet it'll be even more." Robert went pale, but he quickly tried to regain his composure. "You thought talking about money would make me cancel the divorce? Who do you think you are?" "I've already gotten close to a rich lady," he said, striking a pose. But then I remembered Robert following Ashley recently. If what he considered getting close was his stalking behavior, then he was seriously deluded. Ashley came from a wealthy family. Her grandfather was a businessman, and now her father had taken over. Ashley truly was the perfect heiress, but she didn't flaunt it. She spent money like me and our friends, and no one judged her based on her family's wealth. However, Robert seemed to have found out about Ashley's wealthy background and decided she'd be a better match. Could he possibly think that if two people are the same age, the wealthier one is better? That infuriated me. But Ashley would never marry Robert. Her high school boyfriend, whom she'd been dating for years, was coming back to the States soon. They would likely get married. I mentioned how Ashley felt really creeped out because someone had been stalking her every day. When Robert heard that Ashley found him creepy and that they weren't close, he was shocked. "I always walked Ashley home," he said. "You're lucky I didn't call the police," I replied. "But I didn't know she had a boyfriend. He's been away. She'd pick me over someone she doesn't know. They've been writing letters since they were kids and talk almost every day. And unlike you, who's only had part-time jobs, her boyfriend is successful. Even her dad likes him." Robert looked really sad when I said all that. But when the people came to take away our stuff, he seemed to feel better. "I guess you're all I've got now. You'll always support my dream of being a voice actor, won't you?" he asked, trying to look cool. I gave him a cold stare and said sorry. "I've already started divorce proceedings. Let's talk through our lawyers from now on." Robert, maybe thinking I still liked him, held on to me. "Don't say that. Haven't we been getting along all this time?" "Getting along? When? Since you found out my best friend Ashley is rich, you've been distant and hanging out with her." "Right after we got married, I realized I made a mistake." Robert started crying, even though he's older than me. Seeing him cry like a kid made me like him even less. I couldn't stand being near him anymore. "Stop it." "Oh, I also told your uncle we're getting divorced." "Your uncle? You know he's tough, right?" "Well, I've been paying all the rent and bills until now. When I told your uncle I might leave, he said he'd make you work for him. That means I can't keep studying voice acting. You hardly practice anyway. Maybe it's time to face reality. And if you go near Ashley again, I'll call the police. Goodbye." I left, determined not to turn back. For now, I'll stay with my parents, but I might move closer to work if I find a good place. As for Robert, his uncle made him work at his company just like he said he would. Then Robert's parents, who were planning to live off him after he married Ashley, also moved in. They all ended up working for the uncle. It seems like taking advantage of people runs in their family. I'm just glad I got away from that toxic situation. Age doesn't matter much, but I'll be more careful choosing my next partner. On a brighter note, after things settled with Robert, Ashley invited me to her wedding. She introduced me to her long-term boyfriend, and I truly wished them happiness. My marriage didn't work out, but I hope Ashley's lasts a long time. The noise of Alex's voice cut through the clinking of dishes like a sharp knife. "Alara, bring me some tea now." I paused, my hand in soapy water. "Wait, I'm doing the dishes." "What?" His voice was full of disbelief and impatience. Stop that and bring me the tea quickly. Can't you follow simple orders? But, I started, but he cut me off. What a useless wife you are. Make me some sweet coffee, please. It was Mrs. Whitmore, my mother-in-law, speaking from the living room. She was eating a slice of cake she'd taken from the fridge, her eyes glinting with spite. I sighed, looking at the pile of dishes. There are so many. Leave them for later. Just do what we say, useless wife. Alex's words hit like a whip, each one stinging. I was Alara, a 28-year-old working mother feeling trapped in a life that felt more like a prison than a home. I got married at 23, hoping for love and companionship. Instead, I found myself stuck with Alex and his demanding mother. Our 4-year-old son was my only source of joy in a bleak world. We lived in Alex's parents' house, a decision I had to accept under the pretense of taking care of Mrs. Whitmore after my father-in-law passed away. At first, I felt sorry for her, thinking she was grieving, but soon I realized I was just a pawn in her cruel game of domestic control. No matter how much I cooked, cleaned, or worked, it was never enough. My efforts were always met with scorn. My meals were either left untouched or harshly criticized. The stir-fry is so half-hearted, Mrs. Whitmore would sneer. Cook it properly from scratch. I'm busy and can only make simple things, I'd say, trying to sound calm. That's why I hate backtalk from a daughter-in-law, she'd snap. Cook from scratch. Why don't you cook then? You're a good cook, right? I dared to ask once, immediately regretting it. Why would I do housework when you're here? Her response was cold and dismissive. Are you out of your mind? Their cruelty got worse over time. They stopped talking to me altogether, as if I were a ghost in my own home. My presence, once just unappreciated, now felt completely invisible. 5 years passed in this suffocating atmosphere. Alex and I turned 35 and 33, respectively. Our son grew up, but the heavy atmosphere in the house didn't change. My mother-in-law, now 63, seemed to enjoy my unhappiness. One evening, as I walked home from work, I felt a heavy realization sink in. My life seemed meaningless. To them, I was like a shadow, unnoticed and ignored. The only person who seemed to see me was my son. The idea of losing even that little bit of recognition was too much to bear. When I got home, I started cooking right away, trying to push away the sadness. I made mapo tofu, fried chicken, and a stir-fry with bell peppers and pork, hoping to make our dinner feel normal. Bring me the mayo, Alex suddenly commanded, breaking his long silence. Sure, here you are, I replied, handing him the mayonnaise. His first words to me in ages weren't thankful or conversational, just another command. It was too much, the final straw. I couldn't tolerate it anymore. The evening got worse when Mrs. Whitmore said, "Clean the toilet." What? Right now? I couldn't believe it. Yes, right now, she insisted, her voice full of bitterness. I couldn't hold back my frustration. Don't say such things while we're eating. It's disgusting, just like your heart. She hissed, and our argument quickly escalated, with Alex joining in, demanding. I apologized to his mother, but stood my ground for the first time in years. The conflict reached its peak, and I made a decision. I needed to get out of this toxic situation, for my son's sake as well as my own. I went to my room determined. I downloaded divorce papers, filled them out, and handed them to Alex. He was shocked, but I felt nothing but determination. I'm filing these, I said firmly. As I faced my husband's surprised expression, I realized I had finally stepped out of the shadows. It was time to take control of my life. In the days after I declared my intention to divorce, there were a lot of angry looks and hurtful words, but in the middle of it all, I felt a strange sense of freedom. One evening, as I served dinner, Mrs. Whitmore looked at the meal with disgust. You call this food? Even a child cooks better. I held back my frustration, focusing on my son's smile. Eat up, sweetheart. I made your favorite tonight. Alex jumped in, sarcastic. Oh, now suddenly you're the perfect mother, huh? What a joke. I could feel anger rising, but I stayed calm. I'm just trying to make a nice dinner for our son. Mrs. Whitmore scoffed. Don't act like you're better than us. You're just a nuisance in this house. The tension at the table was thick. Alex's insults kept coming. So, Alara, have you even thought about how you'll manage after the divorce? You can barely handle running a household, let alone your own life. I looked him in the eye. I've been supporting this family for years. I'm not worried about taking care of myself and our son. His smirk faded slightly, a hint of unease crossing his face. Mrs. Whitmore quickly stepped in. Don't be ridiculous. You rely on us more than we rely on you. The conversation shifted to money, a topic they usually avoided. You know, without my paycheck, this household would struggle. I said more to myself than to them. Mrs. Whitmore scoffed. We'll manage. We don't need your charity. But Alex's silence said it all. He knew the truth. Without my income, they would be in trouble. In the following days, their behavior became more unpredictable. Mrs. Whitmore would switch between trying to persuade me to stay and hurling insults when I resisted. Alex, meanwhile, seemed lost, his confident demeanor fading as the reality of his financial reliance on me sank in. One afternoon, I overheard a conversation between them that sent shivers down my spine. Leaving her is not an option, Alex whispered angrily. We rely on her money. Mrs. Whitmore's response was chillingly calculated. Don't fret, I have a plan. We'll make her life so miserable she won't even think about leaving. Hearing their true intentions shocked me. They didn't care about me or our son. It was all about control and money. That night, lying in bed, a plan began to form. If they wanted a fight, they would get one. But not with arguments. I would hit them where it hurt most, their pride and their wallets. The next morning, I set my plan in motion. I contacted a lawyer, a sharp, no-nonsense woman. I want a divorce, and I want to ensure they don't get more than they deserve, I told her. She nodded firmly. We'll make sure of that. You've been the main provider, right? We'll use that. With each passing day, my determination only grew stronger. I started keeping records of everything. The insults, the financial tricks, even the smallest annoyances. It was time to make them face the music. They needed to see the consequences of their actions. As I gathered evidence, I felt a sense of strength. For the first time in years, I felt like I had control over my life. The shadows of disrespect were fading away, and in their place, a new beginning was emerging. As the divorce process started, the tension at home grew worse. But with each passing day, my fear faded, replaced by determination. One evening, Mrs. Whitmore tried a different approach. Alara dear, why don't we forget all this unpleasantness? You know we're family, she said, but her words were dripping with insincerity. I held her gaze steady. Family doesn't treat each other the way you've treated me. Alex, who had been silent, scoffed. Oh, now you're the victim. You're not as innocent as you act. I felt anger rising, but I stayed calm. I'm not pretending anything, Alex. I'm just not willing to be your punching bag anymore. The conversation shifted to money, as it often did. You think you can just take our son and go? How will you support him? Alex challenged. I smiled confidently. I've been supporting this family for years. I'll manage. Mrs. Whitmore's sneer twisted into her face. You're nothing without us. You'll come begging to return. But their words didn't affect me anymore. I knew my value and the truth. The next day, I met with my lawyer again. She outlined the plan clearly. We'll expose their financial dependence on you. It'll be crucial in the custody battle and dividing assets. I nodded, feeling validated. The law was backing me, and I was ready to stand up for myself. At home, the tension reached its peak. Mrs. Whitmore's attempts to undermine me became more desperate. You think you're clever, she spat one evening, but you're just abandoning your family. I looked her straight in the eye. No, I'm finally standing up for myself. Alex joined in, his voice full of anger. You'll regret this. You can't survive without me. But I wasn't afraid of his threats anymore. As days passed, I prepared for the court battle. I gathered financial documents, recorded their hurtful words, and collected evidence of their neglect. One afternoon, as I sorted through my papers, my son came to me. Mom, are we going to be okay? His voice was small and uncertain. I pulled him close, feeling a surge of protectiveness. Yes, sweetheart, we're going to be just fine. We're leaving this place and starting a new happy life. Just you and me. His arms tightened around me, and in that moment, I knew I was doing the right thing. I was fighting for my son's future, not just for myself. The day of the court hearing approached, bringing a sense of impending freedom. I was ready to confront Alex and Mrs. Whitmore, to put an end to their control and abuse. I was ready to take back my life and give my son the peace and happiness he deserved. It was time for justice, and I was determined to see it through. The day of the court hearing arrived, a day I had been dreading yet eagerly awaiting. Sitting across from Alex and Mrs. Whitmore in the courtroom, I felt a surreal mix of emotions. This was the moment of change. The proceedings began formally. Alex's lawyer painted him as a devoted husband and father, unfairly accused. Mrs. Whitmore portrayed herself as a grieving mother-in-law, mistreated by an ungrateful daughter-in-law. But their act was transparent, their lies obvious. When it was my turn to speak, I spoke clearly, my voice steady. I have been the only one working to support this family for years. My husband's unemployment and his mother's manipulation have caused constant strain. Alex interrupted, pretending to be hurt. Alara, how can you say these things? I turned to him, my gaze firm. Support isn't just words, Alex. It's about actions, and your actions have been selfish and cruel. The judge listened as I presented my evidence. Financial documents, recordings of their verbal abuse, testimonies from neighbors who had witnessed their behavior. The truth was clear. As the evidence piled up, Alex's facade crumbled. Mrs. Whitmore's calm demeanor cracked, revealing her true nature. The courtroom fell silent, tension thick in the air. Then came the bombshell that sealed their fate. My lawyer presented evidence, photographs and documents proving Alex's infidelity and Mrs. Whitmore's affair with a neighbor, Mr. Harwood. The courtroom buzzed as the images were shown, revealing their deceit for all to see. Alex paled, his eyes wide with shock. Mrs. Whitmore's anger twisted her expression, her hands shaking. "You violated our privacy," she shrieked, her voice piercing. I met her gaze calmly. "No, I exposed the truth, a truth you both tried to hide for too long." The judge called for order, but the damage was done. Their credibility crumbled, their lies laid bare. As the hearing ended, the judge's decision was clear. I was granted full custody of our son, and assets were divided fairly. Alex and Mrs. Whitmore were left with nothing but their ruined reputations. Walking out of the courtroom, I felt like a burden had been lifted. The years of manipulation and abuse were finally behind me. I had stood up to them and won. But the best moment was when my son ran into my arms outside, his face beaming with relief. "We did it, Mom," he said happily. "Yes, we did," I replied, hugging him tightly. "We're free now. This is just the beginning for us." As we walked away together, I knew this victory wasn't just for me. It was for anyone who's ever felt small or powerless. It was for truth and fairness. It was the start of a new chapter, one filled with hope and a better future. The aftermath of the court ruling was swift and chaotic. News of Alex and Mrs. Whitmore's deceit spread quickly, staining their reputations in our small community. They could no longer hide behind their facade of respectability. In the days after the verdict, I focused on rebuilding my life with my son, but I couldn't ignore the satisfaction of knowing they were facing the consequences. One evening, while preparing dinner, I had an unexpected visitor, Mrs. Harwood, Mr. Harwood's wife, her eyes filled with tears. "Alara, I heard everything. I can't believe what Sylvia, Mrs. Whitmore, did," she said, her voice trembling with pain. I invited her in, offering a cup of tea. As we sat at the kitchen table, she poured out her heartache. I trusted her as a neighbor, as a friend, and to think she was having an affair with my husband. I listened, offering comfort. It was clear Mrs. Whitmore's actions had caused more damage than she anticipated. The next day, I ran into Alex in town. He looked defeated, a shadow of his former self, his arrogance gone. I paused, facing him. "What's left to say, Alex?" He shifted uncomfortably, avoiding my gaze. "I'm sorry for everything. I didn't realize how much I relied on you, on your strength." His apology, though belated, marked a shift in power. He had lost everything: his pride, his home, his family. And in that loss, he finally acknowledged his mistakes. But it was Mrs. Whitmore who faced the harshest consequences. Her affair with Mr. Harwood had not only tarnished her reputation, but also led to legal troubles. Mrs. Harwood had filed for divorce and was suing her for alienation of affection. I heard about Mrs. Whitmore's downfall through whispers and rumors from neighbors, painting a picture of a woman brought down by her own actions. She became an outcast, rejected by those she once called friends. One afternoon, I spotted her at the grocery store, her demeanor defeated as she hurried through the aisles. Our paths crossed, and our eyes met briefly. The resentment and defeat in her gaze were clear. "You did this to me," she muttered as she passed by. I watched her go, feeling a mix of pity and vindication. No, Sylvia, you did this to yourself, I whispered to myself. The tables had turned, and the consequences of their choices were now unavoidable. Alex and Mrs. Whitmore were facing the consequences of their years of deceit and manipulation. As I saw them struggle, I understood that the greatest revenge was living well, free from their toxicity. Refocusing on my son and our new life, I realized this wasn't just about revenge. It was about freedom, breaking away from abuse and control. Looking ahead, I knew the best was yet to come.
My name is Mia. I'm 24 years old and work full-time. I've been dating a guy at work who's a year older than me for 3 years now, and we've decided to get married. In public, my mom behaved very differently. It happened when my boyfriend was around. I was prepared for her to say something mean to him, but she surprised me by being kind. The reason behind her behavior was that my boyfriend's dad held a high position in a big company, and my boyfriend was going to join that company after gaining more experience at his current job. My mom was thinking about the future and wanted to improve her image now so she could get help later on. Because my boyfriend believed my mom's act completely, I couldn't talk to him about what my mom was really like. My sister has always treated me like I'm beneath her. She would make fun of me, pointing out how differently our parents treated us. I have an older sister who's 3 years older than me. She's already married and lives away from our family home. I still live with our parents. My mom especially favors my sister a lot, which has always been clear to me. Even though my dad also seems to prefer my sister, he does care about me too, which is reassuring. I've been eager to move out of my parents' house and live with my boyfriend, but my mom won't let me for some reason. Even though my sister moved out to live with her husband before they got married, I can't understand why I'm not allowed to do the same. I think part of it is because my mom wants me around to help out at home, but part of it feels like she's being unfair. In public, my mom behaved very differently. It happened when my boyfriend was around. I was prepared for her to say something mean to him, but she surprised me by being kind. The reason behind her behavior was that my boyfriend's dad held a high position in a big company, and my boyfriend was going to join that company after gaining more experience at his current job. My mom was thinking about the future and wanted to improve her image now so she could get help later on. Because my boyfriend believed my mom's act completely, I couldn't talk to him about what my mom was really like. My sister has always treated me like I'm beneath her. She would make fun of me, pointing out how differently our parents treated us. I was fed up with my older sister who always acted like she was better than me, even though she's just 4 years older. She married a guy who's 2 years older than her and works for a well-known company, earning a good salary. She never let me forget it. But once she found out my boyfriend would soon work for his dad, an executive at a big company, she stopped bragging about her husband. My sister used to visit our parents almost every weekday. I'm not sure what she did with our stay-at-home mom, but when I got home from work, she'd look at me with pity and wouldn't offer any comfort. I work too, so I managed to save a bit of money each month for my future. It's not much, but it adds up. My sister, on the other hand, doesn't need to work because her husband earns enough. She's proud of their lifestyle, even though she didn't earn that money herself. "Have you saved any money for your future?" she asked me once. "Well, sort of. I have some in a bank account," I replied. "I withdrew it once for wedding expenses and it's safe for now. We're also saving for the wedding, so I'm doing some calculations." "I see," my mom remarked. "There was money in the safe." "Yes, temporarily," I said. I wondered why she was asking, but it turned out to cause a big argument later on. The expenses for our wedding were supposed to be shared by both families, but since his parents were more enthusiastic about the ceremony, they agreed to cover a larger portion. We decided to handle the down payment ourselves. When my sister got married, her in-laws also contributed significantly, which was a relief for our modest family. About a month later, as usual, my sister stormed into our family home. However, what caught my attention this time was her car. The car was parked proudly, almost flaunting itself. It was a popular model. I assumed she had bought it with her husband's money, but this time it was different. "Mia, have you seen my car?" "Huh? Your car?" I hadn't noticed." "That's good. Mom bought it for me." I was quite surprised. I couldn't help but wonder where the money came from. It wasn't a luxury car, but it was a new model worth nearly $30,000. I was astonished by how much my family favored my sister, even buying her a car. It was shocking. "You must be happy about this, right? Don't forget to thank Mia." "What? Why should she thank me?" I was completely baffled by what Mom was saying, but they both gave me a sly smile. "That's right. We used your money to buy it." "Huh? Thanks a lot, Mia." I didn't understand what they were talking about, and I felt confused. "The $30,000 in the safe, we used it to buy your sister's car. That was supposed to be your wedding fund, but it's okay, right? We're family," Mom said, giving me a mean grin. But that wasn't my money. It wasn't even for my wedding. Huh? Mom's expression turned serious instantly. Thinking back on it now, it almost makes me laugh. My sister beside me was also surprised. I had already managed my money and returned it to my bank account. I hadn't even saved up to $30,000. But for some reason Mom was looking at me skeptically. Dad mentioned he hadn't withdrawn the wedding expenses yet. So isn't that different money in the safe? As we looked at each other, Mom and my sister seemed to be trying to piece together what they knew about whose money it was. I can't confirm whose it is, I said, but Mom thought I was bluffing and smirked at my uncertainty. I had seen an envelope marked $30,000 when I borrowed the safe from Dad before, so it's definitely not my money. Anyway, they said, "We're grateful to you, Mia. Take good care of the car. It's wrong to lay hands on someone else's money without permission." They both misunderstood things and just let the conversation drop, but Mom will regret this big mistake she made. My sister drove home in her new car and Mom went out shopping. I was left alone in the living room, feeling more and more eager to leave this house as soon as possible. Looking back, neither my mother nor my sister ever congratulated me on my upcoming marriage. Mom made a big deal out of my sister's wedding, celebrating joyfully when she heard the news. Meanwhile, both my sister and Mom practically pressured me into giving a $1,000 gift. Mom was thrilled and closely followed the details of my sister's wedding, eagerly looking at photos of the venue. However, when it came to my wedding, which was planned to be much more modest and affordable compared to my sister's lavish affair, she clearly showed her disappointment and gave me a cold response. Regardless, even before my sister got married, I had to endure constant bragging about her husband's income, looks, and personality. Information I never asked for kept coming my way. She would say things like, "Honestly, I doubt you'll ever find someone as amazing as my guy." It's the kind of thing a sister should never say to her younger sibling. I focused on my work, hoping to one day look back on my tough life at my parents' house and how I met my current boyfriend. He's a high achiever at our workplace, where we both work. As I mentioned earlier, he's soon moving to a major corporation where his father is an executive. Our current job is subcontracted by his father's company, so we earn a decent income. Initially, the company was discussing how much my boyfriend would transfer to his father's company after gaining experience at our current workplace. Supporting my boyfriend's growth and ensuring a smooth transition would benefit our business relationship with clients. When my sister first found out that my boyfriend worked at the same company as me, she made a rude comment, saying, "He's just like you." However, after I explained his future prospects, she went quiet. It might be because the company he's moving to is even bigger than my brother-in-law's company. My sister's patronizing attitude hasn't changed since we were kids. Our parents always favored her, buying her any toy she wanted without question. My dad, feeling sorry for me, would spend time playing with me. But my sister, who's good at pleasing others, sometimes manipulated him to keep us apart. I really dislike my sister. She's outgoing and talks energetically, whereas I'm not exactly introverted, but I'm quiet and often felt pressured to cater to my sister's preferences. From my mom's perspective, I always seemed dissatisfied. While that perception isn't entirely wrong, I believe my mother misunderstands my true character. A week after my sister flaunted her new car, she came home as usual, and both she and my mother were relaxing in the living room while I stayed in my room. Suddenly, the door to my father's room next to mine swung open, and I heard him hurrying down the stairs. I could hear my father raising his voice, so I went downstairs to see what was happening. He was questioning my mother and sister alternately. It was there. I'm sure it wasn't there. No, really? In what form? In an envelope. Hey Mia, have you been in the safe lately? I only took out some money when you asked me to. My sister was clearly flustered and kept glancing outside, towards her new car. Mia, do you know anything about this? My mother looked at me with a shocked expression. Her face seemed to say, "Don't say a word, Mom and Sis already know more about this." Wait, hold on, what are you implying? I have nothing to do with this. What are you talking about? Despite them revealing the source and use of the money to me, I was shocked by their audacity to pretend they didn't know. And that car, I pointed at my sister's new car. Tell me Mom didn't buy that for you as a gift, right? My mother's face went pale, and my sister looked like she wanted to disappear. It was the first time I'd seen such expressions on their faces. That envelope is Mia's money, isn't it? I asked. But Mia just said she took it out of the safe. So whose money is it, if not Mia's? She's been saving it. I haven't withdrawn it yet. What's going on? Even if it's Mia's, you used it without permission. My mom kept stealing glances at my sister, who avoided eye contact. This is typical of my sister's behavior. Mom must be shocked because that money was supposed to be for renovating the house to make it accessible for our parents. I knew Mom had been urging Dad to let her mother live with us. She wanted to care for our grandmother, who had become frail after losing our grandfather a few years ago. While Dad's parents were well supported by nearby siblings, Mom had no siblings and her mother lived alone, so she hoped her mother could move in with us. We were even planning to make our home accessible to accommodate her. My parents believed that preparing the house now would be beneficial as they grew older. The $30,000 was specifically set aside for this purpose. My mother had mistaken it for my savings. Now what are we going to do? You knew we needed that money to make the house accessible, right? We've already signed the contract and construction starts next month. What's the plan now? Dad's angry questions overwhelmed Mom, leaving her tearful. My sister remained indifferent as usual. We'll have to cancel the renovations, Mom whispered sadly. No, absolutely not. Then Grandma can't move in. You need to talk to your parents. Can't we find another solution? Dad slammed his hand on the table, raising his voice. This is no joke. You need to figure this out. The only option left is to sell the car. Wait a minute, selling the car isn't an option. Can't we find another way, maybe borrow from another source? Please, help us. I can't face my husband with this, pleaded Mom, now at odds with my sister after being so united in pressuring me earlier. Dad watched them with disbelief. Mom, realizing the gravity of her irreversible actions, was in dire straits, her plans to care for her parents now shattered. My sister attempted to play innocent with Dad, but he wasn't buying it this time. It was clear the new car parked outside was bought with the money from our safe, and Dad was growing tired of her attempts to avoid responsibility. But you agreed to Grandma moving in. You promised to take care of Mom. Why the sudden change? Dad's frustration grew. Your parents are fine, with siblings nearby. My mom is alone, with no one close by. It was true, Mom's family lived out of state, far away, but now she was reacting out of desperation. Dad became even angrier, and a heated argument erupted, fueled by the financial betrayal. Blame was unfairly falling on Dad. Seeing my sister try to slip away, I quietly moved the car keys to Dad's side, preventing her escape. If you're insisting on Grandma moving in, then take responsibility for it. What you did is no different from theft, I asserted firmly. Mom looked down, appearing resigned. Dad clarified that the money Mom used for the car was from the safe, and my sister was equally responsible. This angered my sister. Dad, you've always been too forgiving of her, I said, my expression stern. Don't you think it's unfair? Even Mom misunderstood. It's clear Dad is troubled by my sister, who never seems to learn. She's stubbornly defensive, especially when it comes to me. Just because it's my money doesn't give you the right to use it. I'm not the villain here. And what's with Mia marrying a man with a bright future? He's just benefiting from our parents' connections. I've always endured how my sister treated me, but this time, I couldn't take it anymore. Isn't it strange how your husband's family spoils him like that? I don't need lectures from someone as spoiled and naive as you. Even Mom, Dad, and my sister were taken aback by my outburst of anger. Who are you calling naive and disgusting? I'm talking to you, the one who doesn't appreciate Mom, who bought you a car, and only cares about herself. My frustration peaked, causing my sister to step back. By the way, my boyfriend's father is the executive at your husband's main client. I proposed a solution to Dad. At first he was surprised, but since it came from me, he, considering me the victim, accepted it. A week later, Mom announced she was giving up on the idea of living together. But Dad intervened. You have $10,000 in your account, right? Take it all out. With that, Dad retrieved the blueprint and cost estimate for the construction. The initial estimate was $30,000, but by opting for less expensive plumbing fixtures, it could be reduced to $25,000. Mom listened quietly to Dad's explanation, nodding in agreement. I can manage $10,000, which leaves enough for Maya's wedding, but I can't cover more than that. We're still $5,000 short, Mom admitted, sounding resigned as she looked down. The remaining $5,000 will have to come from Mia, Dad stated firmly. What? Grandma's situation shouldn't be blamed, and Mom would be in trouble, right? This money is my safety net, saved up in case of emergencies. Mom covered her face with both hands, tears streaming down as she nodded. Go ahead with it, Dad, I said. Are you sure about this? Dad asked, seeking confirmation. I nodded in agreement. Mom continued to bow her head, expressing her gratitude. I've been cold to Mia all this time, causing her discomfort. I thought it was justified to use her money because it was hers, despite my behavior, and yet, she sobbed, taking my hand. I'm really sorry. Thank you so much. In return, make sure you celebrate my wedding properly, as any mother should. After making some adjustments to the construction plan, the work began on schedule. The renovations went smoothly, and it was decided that my grandmother would soon move in with us. As for my sister, she didn't visit our parents' house for a while, but apparently she did apologize to them. While she didn't apologize directly to me, it seems she acknowledged her mistakes. Mom completely changed her attitude towards me, interacting in a much kinder manner. Perhaps it's because of the money and her feelings of remorse. As planned, my wedding went ahead smoothly. Both mom and dad appeared genuinely happy. Meanwhile, my sister's husband was busy ingratiating himself with my fiance's father, bowing respectfully and serving him drinks. It was quite a sight to see my sister's surprised expression when she realized my earlier concerns were true. With that, our family's major issue was resolved, and it seemed to bring closure to the challenges in my life as well. Interestingly, during the wedding, when a picture of my sister lovingly doting on me as a baby was projected, it seemed my sister quietly shed a few tears.